fated encounter amidst the end of the world. The first thing I did, after turning into a zombie, was to wander everywhere, scavenging for baby formula and diapers, all because I had adopted a human child. Every other zombie laughed at me, calling me a fool. But what they did not know was that this child was the reincarnated human Empress. In her past life, she had conquered the four corners of the realm, survived countless life and death calamities, and slaughtered innumerable experts from alien races. Yet, in her final tribulation, she was ambushed in a cowardly manner, perishing at the hands of the starry sky Zerg Mother. Now she has been reborn back to the dawn of the apocalypse 50 years ago. The only catch is that she has returned as a newborn infant. As for me, I had just transmigrated into this world and was attacked by a zombie, ultimately transforming into a member of the undead. Fortunately, I retained my human consciousness. I survived for an entire month on the frozen meat I found in a convenience store refrigerator. Now, the meat in the freezer has begun to rot. Although zombies feast on putrid flesh, possessing the mind of a human, I could never accept such a fate. With no other choice, I disguised myself as an ordinary zombie and ventured outside in search of food. As I entered a house, preparing to head toward the kitchen, I suddenly heard the sound of a child crying from the adjacent room. When I pried open the bedroom door, I found that the room's decor was warm and inviting, standing in stark contrast to the blood-stained living room. On the bed lay a baby girl of about 6 months, wailing incessantly. It was likely that her parents, in their final moments, had locked the bedroom door to protect their child. At that very moment, Yun Ruokshu felt a sense of utter despair. Having struggled so hard to be reborn, she never expected that the first being she would see was not her parents, but a zombie. Having already endured hunger for a long time, compounded by the extreme terror of the situation, Yun Ruokshu fell unconscious from the physiological toll of panic and starvation. Looking at the appearance of this little one, I felt a sense of astonishment. Despite being only 5 or 6 months old, her eyes seemed to express a profound sense of grief and helplessness. In this world, I felt a sudden flicker of empathy. Both the child and I were unfortunate souls who had arrived in this world by strange fate, only to face the catastrophe of the apocalypse. This new life that had appeared before my eyes was like a light in the darkness, allowing me to find a new purpose. And so, I decided to adopt this child, becoming a reluctant father. However, I suddenly discovered the child seemed to have fainted from hunger, and the container of powdered milk in the room was completely empty. I decided to head out and scavenge for more milk. I locked the bedroom door securely and pushed a sofa against it to ensure no zombies could breach the room. After searching the kitchen and finding nothing, I had no choice but to head upstairs to continue my search. The third-floor hallway was stained with dried, dark brown blood, and scattered across the floor were unrecognizable remains of limbs. Even though the hallway door stood open, a pungent stench permeated the air. Within the corridor, several mangled zombies lurked. I had long since grown accustomed to such sights, and proceeded to search the apartments one by one. I ransacked several kitchens in succession, yet found no milk, only bits of raw meat that had not yet completely rotted. It was not until I searched an apartment on the 5th floor that I found the mistress of the house had turned into a zombie, while her child had either been consumed or silenced forever. Had the little one not been locked safely in the bedroom, I feared she would have met the same fate. Fortunately, I discovered 2 sealed tins of powdered milk in the kitchen, along with 2 gin of raw meat that had not yet spoiled. Yun Ruokshu, in her drowsy state, felt the scent of milk entering her mouth. Instinctively, she began to suckle. After receiving this burst of energy, she struggled to open her eyes, only to realize she had not died. To her shock, a zombie was acting as a wet nurse, carefully feeding her with a spoon. In her memories of a past life, zombies were nothing more than bloodthirsty monsters. She herself had once personally ended the lives of comrades who had turned into the undead. Could it be that this zombie intended to raise her to adulthood, only to devour her later? I was unaware of the child's thoughts. Seeing her open her eyes, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. However, due to her long period of starvation, she was still not full after the first bowl of milk. In that moment, I briefly forgot my nature as a zombie. Intending to speak, I discovered that I could only emit a low, guttural growl. Realizing this, I held my tongue, turned away in silence, and prepared 3 more bowls until she was satisfied. I sighed to myself. Raising a child is no easy feat. I realized I would need to secure a larger supply of milk powder in the future. Fortunately, the sealed milk had a long shelf life, so I did not need to worry about it spoiling. After her meal, Yun Ruokshu lay contentedly in her cradle, feeling as though the entire situation were absurd. The aura emanating from the zombie before her clearly indicated it was merely a first-tier zombie that had recently turned. Its power was negligible. Zombies of such a low rank should possess no consciousness, yet she could not comprehend how this was possible. However, as an empress who had endured countless life-or-death trials, Yun Ruokshu gradually composed herself. Though she remained inwardly unsettled, she reasoned that even if this zombie intended to eat her, she was nothing more than prey in its hands. and thus she ceased to worry. Her nerves, stretched thin by days of starvation and terror, finally surrendered to exhaustion, and Yun Ruoxu drifted into a deep sleep. Our new sanctuary on the 7th floor. I looked into the child's sleepy eyes, and I could not help but curl the corners of my lips into a faint smile. This was the first time I had felt such peace and serenity. Yet if I were to leave an infant of only a few months behind, she would surely perish. Therefore, I made the decision to take her with me. This was an old, 7-story apartment building. The 2nd floor was currently unsafe, and since the 7th floor was the highest, it was relatively secure. Perhaps because the complex was aged, the number of zombies was not high, but those that remained were starving. I did not dare to carry the child around openly. Thus, I brandished my crowbar, easily crushing the skulls of the undead from behind. Once the path was cleared of zombies, I attended to my personal hygiene. After ensuring the child was comfortable and secure, I bathed and changed into a clean set of clothes. At this moment, if one ignored the hideous wounds, I appeared no different from an ordinary human. I managed to find all the necessary supplies. Most importantly, a nearly complete stash of infant essentials within the room. It was likely left behind by a family who fled in a panic when the zombie outbreak first erupted. Perhaps due to my constant activity as of late, my limbs, which had been deathly stiff after my transformation into a zombie, seemed to have become significantly more flexible, even allowing me to perform a few simple human motions. Although I felt suspicious regarding this, I did not ponder it for long. My entire focus remained on Yun Ruoxu. Just as I picked up a diaper, preparing to change her, a startling realization suddenly flashed through Yun Ruoxu's mind. If she had only been confused when he fed her previously, then now, witnessing him know how to change a diaper, she was directly convinced that he must still retain human consciousness. Recalling the details from our initial encounter, she realized I was different from other zombies. I knew how to turn a door handle, how to knock on doors with a crowbar, and even how to prepare powdered milk. Yet these behaviors were entirely inconsistent with the instincts of an ordinary first-level zombie. She became increasingly certain that I still possessed human consciousness, concluding that only a human will could suppress the bloodthirsty instincts of a zombie. But the next second, Yun Ruoxu's eyes widened in shock. This zombie before her appeared in no way like a woman, and she never expected her lifelong virtue to be tarnished by a diaper. Yet she quickly let the thought go. It was already a stroke of fortune to be reborn, and her life had been saved by this very zombie. Such a trip. Seeing my stiff limbs as she clumsily changed my diaper, Yun Ruoxu felt a mixture of profound sorrow and deep sympathy. She imagined that I once had a happy family, only for the apocalypse to strike and transform me into a mindless zombie. The crushing loneliness and the agony of being unable to belong to any collective touched a tender chord deep within her soul. Consequently, she made the decision to accept me, choosing to become my daughter in this desolate world. The night of the blood moon began. After securing our new sanctuary, I considered the nutritional needs of both myself and the child, and resolved to stockpile more food. However, venturing out during the day would surely invite suspicion from other survivors, easily exposing both myself and the infant to danger. Thus, I chose to act under the veil of night. Before departing, I not only locked the bedroom door securely, but also barricaded the stairwell with a heavy cabinet, guarding against both zombies and desperate humans. I had witnessed enough in this apocalypse to know the lengths to which people would go to survive, and I was all too familiar with the darkest depths of human nature. Driven by caution, I carefully chained the iron gate on the ground floor before setting out to scavenge for supplies. While the nearby residential units held little in each household, the accumulation of small caches proved significant, and soon my climbing backpack was brimming with food. Following that, I gathered a large quantity of powdered milk and trekked through the darkness. Yet, I suddenly sensed something amiss. It was only then that I noticed the moon hanging high above had turned a vivid, ominous crimson. Simultaneously, Yun Ruoxu awoke to find the house completely devoid of life. Just as she had finished relieving herself in her diaper, she suddenly caught sight of the blood moon through the window. It seemed the era of global evolution was about to begin. Although the sight of the blood moon took me by surprise, because I was already living within the reality of a zombie apocalypse, and having seen similar phenomena in science fiction films, I quickly accepted this strange occurrence, concluding that this was the true spectacle that a real apocalypse should entail. I resumed my tireless transport of supplies, sparing not even books and reference materials. But during my fourth trip back and forth, I suddenly felt a disturbance within my body, a strange, scorching heat emerging from deep within my cold, necrotic frame. The sensation was both alien and strangely familiar, as if I were returning to the state of the living. Immediately afterward, my brain began to itch with an unbearable intensity. It felt as though my skull might shatter from the pressure. I surmised that my remaining human consciousness was fading, and I was on the verge of becoming a purely bloodthirsty zombie. My heart stirred with brief panic. Aside from myself, the other zombies under the moonlight were undergoing the very same transformation. Meanwhile, The survivors bathed in that moonlight, found their bodies burning with fever, their blood flow accelerating, and their very bones growing significantly stronger and more resilient. Back in the bedroom, Yun Ruokshu was enveloped by the blood-red moonlight. Her small frame trembled as her body heated up, and her latent abilities began to awaken. I know not how much time passed, but at long last, I regained my clarity. Although I had not yet detected any significant changes in my surroundings, the moment I began to move, I realized my agility had vastly improved, shedding the rigid stiffness I possessed while I was a zombie. To my astonishment, the black veins upon my skin began to fade, and hair began to sprout upon my scalp once more. Even the zombies wandering the streets had undergone a transformation, their once gruesome and repulsive appearances shifting to resemble human beings. A glimmer of hope surged within me. It appeared this world was far more complex than I had first imagined. As I passed by a zombie, a strange sensation stirred within my heart, as if a tether existed between myself and the creature. Startling me so deeply, I briefly feared I was suffering from hallucinations. But suddenly, I realized I had seemingly acquired a unique ability, one that allowed me to project my thoughts through this thread into the zombie, much like a puppeteer controlling a marionette. When I focused my concentration, the connection with the zombie grew tighter, and I successfully compelled it to perform complex movements. I named this ability corpse manipulation. After multiple confirmations, I discovered I could only control a maximum of 2 zombies simultaneously, and that commands could not be issued accurately from a great distance. I surmised this limitation was likely tied to the strength of my mental energy. Ultimately, I labeled these controlled zombies as corpse puppets. Feeling a wave of fatigue, I was suddenly reminded of Yun Ruokshu waiting alone at home. I instructed the 2 corpse puppets to carry the collected supplies, and quickly made my way back toward the apartment complex. Truly, zombies are born laborers, requiring neither food, nor water, nor wages. At the same time, having endured the baptism of the blood moon, Yun Ruokshu awakened from her stupor. As a vast influx of information flooded her mind, her eyes gleamed with intense excitement. Unlike the talent she awakened in her previous life, this time she had even awakened the power of telekinesis, capable of manipulating objects through the sheer force of her will. And what left her most astonished and elated was that she had somehow regained the time manipulation ability from her past life. Both of these talents possessed the potential to ascend to the ranks of the supreme experts. In her previous life, relying solely on time manipulation, she had already ascended to the throne of the Empress. Needless to say, having awakened these talents in this life, both her offense and defense would surely manifest miraculous effects. Yun Ruokshu attempted to manifest her abilities, but because her infant body was too frail, sharp, peculiar pains soon pierced through her mind. Even though her spiritual power was currently extremely thin, she remained filled with anticipation for the future, believing that as she matured, her future strength would far surpass that of her past life, even fantasizing that upon reaching adulthood, she would defeat the insect queen who had slain her in her previous existence. Suddenly, a noise echoed from outside. Yun Ruokshu immediately surmised that her zombie father had returned. At this moment, she could not help but feel curious. Whether a zombie who retains human consciousness after being cleansed might, like a human, awaken unique, special abilities. As for me, seeing the wardrobe in the hallway undisturbed, I let out a sigh of relief. This was the first time since arriving in this world that I felt a sense of attachment. I gently pushed the wardrobe aside and rushed into the bedroom, seeing Yun Ruokshu awake, watching me obediently. Although I had never even experienced romance, at this moment, I felt the sensation of being a father. I then went into the kitchen, but due to the loss of water and electricity, I could only use mineral water to mix powdered milk for the child. Just as I was stirring the milk, Yun Ruokshu was also evaluating this zombie father of hers. She noticed that I had undergone changes, though they were not obvious. Yet I now possess somewhat of a human appearance. This differed from the types of zombie evolution within her memories. In her past life, zombies possessed various forms of evolution. Strength-type zombies grew abnormally tall and muscular, possessing exceptional durability, much like battle tanks on a field of war, and were the nightmare of all survivors. Originally, she had placed great expectations on my evolution as a unique zombie following the blood moon. After all, in the apocalypse, overwhelming strength is the key to survival. But seeing that my changes were not obvious, she could not help but feel disappointed. Thus, Yun Ruokshu secretly decided, once she grew up, she would possess immense strength to protect me. She understood very clearly that, if not for me, she, reborn as an infant, would surely have perished in this apocalypse. She was the type to repay every kindness, let alone a debt of gratitude as great as this. You raised me when I was small. I shall care for you when you are old. This was never meant to be merely an empty phrase. Moreover, she was well aware of the primary method of zombie evolution. The most vital method of evolution is, furthermore, there is the matter of seizing the essence cores located within the brains of the zombies, those peculiar zombies that awaken supernatural abilities, regardless of their species, will invariably form an essence core inside their skulls. She is confident that, relying on the advantages gained after her rebirth, she can plunder these essence cores to help me evolve into a high-level zombie. When that time comes, I will regain the power of speech, and my body will begin its transformation back toward that of a human. I was entirely unaware of the child's inner thoughts. Seeing her stare at me so ravenously, I found it incredibly amusing. Although I am currently unable to speak, I still gestured toward the little girl, wishing to let her know that I had already stationed 2 zombie bodyguards, and had even prepared toys for her. Naturally, beyond mere toys, I even brought back study materials, such as 5 years of exam practice, and 3 years of real exam papers. I suddenly realized that I had not yet given Yun Ruokshu a name. After some contemplation, since we reside on the 7th floor, I decided her nickname would be Chi. I hope this name will allow us to remember the beautiful moments spent in our small sanctuary on the 7th floor. I felt satisfied with the supplies gathered in a single night, believing them sufficient to sustain both Chi and me for a long time. Considering the inherent unpredictability of the apocalypse, I decided to remain indoors and observe for a while, ensuring our safety before venturing out again. Survival training. I walked into the living room and picked up a steel butcher knife, approximately half a meter in length. I do not know what profession the owner of this house held to possess such a long and incredibly sharp butcher knife. Although I have never studied sword arts, relying on the immense physical strength of a zombie, I can wield the blade with ease. I contemplated the techniques described in martial arts novels and films, practicing them right there in the living room. Now, with a blade in hand, I could surely stand against several opponents without any difficulty. And just as I was practicing my blade techniques, Yun Ruokshu, after resting for a while, began to study her innate abilities once more. Focusing on her newly awakened telekinetic prowess, she concentrated her mind to manipulate a silver needle on the bedside table. Even though her control was slow at the moment, the silver needle began to glide through the air. And so, time slipped away. 2 days passed, and the two of us lived quite comfortably. At this moment, after I finished feeding Yun Ruokshu, I heard a disturbance coming from outside. Looking through the balcony window, I saw 2 zombies on the street, not fighting over food, but instead tearing into and battling one another. This anomalous behavior completely exceeded my understanding of zombie instincts. Since the 7th floor was too high to see clearly, I chose to head down to the 4th floor to investigate the situation. One zombie was nearly 2 meters tall, possessing immense strength and an exceptionally sturdy physique. The other zombie was gaunt, with claws as sharp as daggers. The strength-type zombie had high defensive capabilities, while the agility-type zombie possessed high attack power but struggled to penetrate that defense. After a fierce brawl, the strength-type zombie relied on its overwhelming power to knock the agility-type zombie away. Ultimately, it shattered the creature's skull with a single punch and plucked a white essence core from within. I was struck with shock at the formidable power of these 2 zombies, which far surpassed my own. It is fortunate that I remained cautious and did not step outside. It appears this world is far more ruthless than I had imagined. I must never become arrogant, simply because I have begun to evolve. And after witnessing the tank-type zombie extract a crystal, a fierce, primal craving surged within me. My instincts whispered that this crystal would be immensely beneficial to my body. Could the battle between these 2 zombies have been solely to seize the crystal hidden within each other's heads? I watched as the hulking zombie consumed the white crystal, roared in exhilaration while beating its chest, and then began violently smashing the surrounding vehicles. The ordinary zombies nearby, upon hearing the commotion, all froze in place. They then collectively chose to increase their distance, instinctually feeling a deep fear of this particular specimen. I suspect that these crystals allow zombies to enhance their abilities after evolution. The primal hunger I felt upon seeing the crystal far surpassed any desire for mere flesh and blood. If I could consume such a crystal, I could certainly strengthen my ability to manipulate zombies, but for now, I am clearly no match for that creature. Suddenly, my eyes landed on the gas canister in the kitchen, and I immediately devised a plan to outwit it. At the same moment, Yun Ruoshu also heard the noises from outside. Although she could not see the situation downstairs, based on her experience from her previous life, she deduced that the world had entered a peak of evolution following the blood moon. Zombies and savage beasts were slaughtering one another in the pursuit of evolution. Surviving humans would soon begin hunting for these crystals, and in the later stages, they would even discover methods for cultivation. As the peerless empress of the human race, the technique Yun Ruokshu practiced in her past life was the most supreme: the glazed respiration method. Yun Ruokshu understood that her zombie father, being merely a low-level zombie, would find it difficult to survive in this apocalypse. She was obligated to rapidly increase her strength to protect them both. Although she is currently in the form of an infant, she is still capable of practicing the glazed respiration method, utilizing the energy particles that saturated the air after the blood moon to begin her cultivation. As she circulated the technique, her body trembled, and the energy particles slowly began to seep into her frame. Yun Ruokshu felt blessed to have been reborn, enabling her to utilize the glazed respiration method from the very inception of the apocalypse. A vast influx of energy particles poured into her body, making her bones more resilient and strengthening her fragile telepathic power. When I returned to the bedroom from downstairs, I saw the child shivering and, fearing she was catching a cold, I hurriedly covered her with a blanket. Yun Ruokshu was startled awake. Seeing my anxious expression, she found it amusing while simultaneously feeling the warmth of fatherly love from her zombie father. Having grown up in an orphanage in her past life and tasted the bitterness of the world, this was the first time she had ever experienced such familial affection. Seeing that little Cheeky was alright, I began to contemplate how to deal with the zombie outside. Such a dangerous threat must be eliminated as soon as possible. The first battle and the high-tier crystal. At dusk, I sent zombie puppet number 1, controlled by my mind, to provoke the tank-type zombie as it continued to digest the power of the crystal inside the store. My puppet corpse struck the stench-type zombie with a flower pot and immediately turned to flee. It successfully lured the creature into the store where I had already prepared a gas canister. Just as the first puppet corpse rushed into the shop, the stench-type zombie lunged forward with immense force, its massive frame crashing directly into the room, crushing my puppet corpse into a pulp. At that moment, the second puppet corpse entered the store, locked the door, and ignited the gas canister with a lighter. The stench-type zombie bore the full brunt of the explosion, emitting mournful roars from within the sea of flames. When it finally crawled out of the shop in agony, it collapsed right in front of the entrance. As the gas canister detonated, I timely withdrew my consciousness from controlling the puppet. Watching as the hulking zombie, now scorched to a crisp, fell before the door, I waited for over 10 minutes, confirming the zombie was truly dead, before daring to approach. Upon drawing near, I discovered that the zombie was burned beyond recognition, its body having suffered extensive damage. I swung my blade, exerting significant effort to cleave through the back of its neck, where I discovered a white crystal core tinged with red. The allure of this crystal core was even more intense to me than that of the pure white ones from before. Based on my observations, the pure white crystals are birthed when a zombie evolves by consuming others, and this red-tinted crystal is clearly a tier above. As other zombies were gradually drawn by the flames, I stowed the crystal away and selected 2 zombies with intact limbs to serve as my new puppets. Returning to the apartment complex, I arranged for the new puppet corpses to stand guard downstairs. After confirming it was safe, I headed up to the 3rd floor. Unable to restrain the craving for the crystal core within my heart, I swallowed it. The crystal core tempered my body, and my skin advanced further, shifting toward a more human-like state. Beyond the improvement in my external appearance, my physical strength and agility were both enhanced by a small margin. Following a brief bout of dizziness caused by the expansion of my consciousness, my mind became exceptionally clear, my senses sharpened, and manipulating the zombies became significantly more fluid. I am now capable of controlling 5 zombies simultaneously, and I have gained a new ability: visual sharing. I have broken through the previous limitation of only being able to manipulate Now it is possible to manipulate them from a distance. Through testing, the radiation limit of my mental energy has been confirmed at 1,000 meters. Within this range, I can manipulate the puppet corpses without revealing myself, significantly enhancing my capacity for survival. Yun Ruokshu heard the explosions at the store and the roars of the evolved zombies. While she was perfectly secure on the 7th floor and had no fear of being discovered, my prolonged absence left her deeply anxious. She knew full well that in her infantile state, facing an evolved zombie with augmented combat strength meant there was no chance of victory. She understood the peril of encountering such creatures and could only pray to the heavens. Do not let her lose the zombie father who had bestowed this paternal love upon her. She had intended to continue practicing the glazed breathing technique, but due to her restless mind, she found it impossible to focus. Just then, the sound of the door opening echoed from outside, and Yun Ruokshu immediately let out a sigh of relief, a smile gracing her face. After all, only her zombie father would have the capability to unlock the door. Upon my return, seeing Yun Ruokshu's smiling expression, a warmth stirred within me. Knowing that my increased strength would allow me to better protect her, I happily headed to the kitchen to prepare her milk. Watching her drink with such contentment, I felt as though this decaying body of mine was once again radiating a vibrant vitality, building an army of puppet corpses. In the 2 days following my increase in strength, I utilized my mental energy to manipulate puppet corpses, to scavenge for supplies in the vicinity, converting the rooms on several floors below into storehouses. Beyond gathering infant supplies and food, I also recovered numerous tools to deal with the undead. Although these days were essentially a repetition of the same routine, internally, I felt incredibly fulfilled, as I could clearly perceive my strength growing stronger with each passing moment. As for Yun Ruokshu, aside from drinking milk, she spent her days practicing the glazed breathing technique. Occasionally, she heard faint, indistinct sounds emanating from the living room. And recalling the anomalies of 2 days prior, she surmised that I must have encountered an extraordinary zombie that had evolved with special abilities. She was well aware of the power of evolved zombies, whose pressure and combat prowess far exceeded those of common undead. Furthermore, in this post-apocalyptic world, common zombies occupied the very bottom of the food chain, facing the multidimensional threats from the remaining survivors, as well as fellow zombies and mutated beasts. She was deeply moved that I had not abandoned my care for her, despite the harsh circumstances. She reflected on the erosion of humanity in this end-times era, and marveled at how precious it was that this zombie father of hers still retained the light of humanity. After days of intensive cultivation, the potency of her psychokinetic power had increased significantly. She could now manipulate silver needles, launching them with blinding, lethal velocity. Paired with her innate ability to manipulate the flow of time, she possessed the confidence to claim a life in complete silence. Yet she remained unsatisfied. To survive in this apocalyptic era, one must strive for even greater strength. Meanwhile, as I dispatched my corpse puppets to scavenge for supplies in the surrounding buildings, I discovered a room belonging to a former martial arts enthusiast. Left behind were numerous combat manuals detailing various techniques for close-quarters engagement. Having evolved beyond a common zombie, my physical constitution far surpassed that of an ordinary human. My movements were no longer rigid, allowing me to master and execute complex martial arts maneuvers with newfound fluidity. While the primal attacks of the undead are inherently crude and barbaric, the modern combat techniques developed by humanity are far more calculated, scientific, and efficient. Even though my evolutionary path is not centered on melee combat through physical force alone, I believe that scientific martial prowess can bridge the gap in physical attributes. Furthermore, I can exploit the unique advantage of the undead, our immunity to pain, to wield weapons with maximum lethal efficiency. After grasping the fundamental principles of these techniques, I commanded 10 corpse puppets to the 6th-floor living room, arming them with iron blades. Through my psychic control, they became the perfect subjects for my training. It is said that a zombie versed in martial arts is an unstoppable force of nature. However, through trial, I discovered that theoretical knowledge and self-study are insufficient for the chaos of a real engagement. Only through true combat can one refine their sense of spacing, master opponent reaction times, and sharpen their tactical judgment. Through relentless, repeated training, I achieved remarkable progress in my martial mastery. Facing the head-on assault of ordinary zombies, I could now counter with ease, transforming from a novice into a practitioner with a refined set of skills. Moreover, I discovered my ability to multitask. I could refine my martial techniques while simultaneously commanding my puppets to scavenge, observing the surrounding terrain through their shared vision. The encounter with the liquor. It was then that I spotted 2 zombies rummaging for supplies on the 3rd floor of the Sunshine apartment complex. Suddenly, a blood-colored figure emerged with a terrifying, supernatural speed. Had it not been for the marks left upon the ground, I would have suspected my own eyes were failing me. I commanded my puppets to shadow the crimson creature, and after several minutes, I finally discerned its form. Its appearance was grotesque and harrowing. Its skin peeled away, while its teeth and tongue had morphed into monstrous, unnatural protrusions. Its limbs had mutated into the razor-sharp claws of a savage beast, stripping it of the ability to stand, leaving it to prowl upon all fours. Yet, it possessed peerless speed and explosive power, capable of traversing walls and ceilings with effortless grace. Faced with this blood-colored zombie, my puppet showed visible signs of terror. The creature moved with such incredible velocity that, in the blink of an eye, it had utterly annihilated the 2 puppets under my control. Just what manner of monster is this? Once my consciousness returned to my own body, my heart was still pounding with lingering shock. Ever since the blood moon, the evolutionary potential of certain zombies has transcended all imagination. My current strength is simply too far beneath theirs, leaving me unable to mount a defense. Even if all 5 of my puppets charged together, they would be decimated in an instant. For now, I can only pray that this blood-colored monster does not descend upon building number 5, where I reside. Daring not to waste a single moment, I train daily against zombies to refine my martial prowess within the 6th-floor living room. Confronted by the combined assault of 3 robust zombies, I navigate the confined space with agility, seizing the perfect opportunity, through refined technique, to swiftly neutralize the creatures. While practicing my combat arts, I tasked my puppets with searching for supplies, while keeping a vigilant watch for any signs of evolved zombies. When one lacks sufficient strength, monsters as formidable as that blood-colored zombie must not be provoked recklessly. However, variations like the hulking zombies and agility-type zombies encountered previously are somewhat more manageable. Through my explorations over the past few days, I have discovered that such crystal cores appear primarily within the heads of evolved zombies. Simultaneously, in a 7th-floor bedroom, Yun Ruokshu, currently trapped in the form of an infant, has progressed from becoming exhausted at the slightest movement to now being capable of levitating her infant body 1 centimeter off the ground. For humanity, the ability to soar through the skies is likely the ultimate dream of all. Although Yun Ruoxu cannot yet achieve true flight, after this period of relentless cultivation, she has finally gained a modicum of self-defense in this apocalyptic world. She remains unaware that if the major survivor camps were to discover this, they would undoubtedly rush to recruit her. To possess the ability to levitate while still an infant is an achievement that is truly astonishing. After concluding my martial arts training on the 6th floor, I commanded my puppets to dispose of the dismantled zombies. As I prepared to head upstairs to feed Chiki, the puppet responsible for scavenging resources, not far from where I stood, a slender agility-type zombie, whose speed had been drastically amplified, was pursuing a gaunt, sallow-skinned survivor. This survivor, having long since exhausted his food reserves, had been forced to venture out in search of sustenance, only to cross paths with the evolved zombie I had been hunting for so long. The agility-type zombie moved with blinding speed, its razor-sharp claws piercing the car door to execute a perfect drift, quickly catching and slaying the survivor. Witnessing this scene, I realized that my opportunity had arrived. Ever since I experienced the surge of energy from consuming a core, I have harbored a singular, burning desire to become stronger. I immediately dispatched a corpse puppet to track and monitor the movements of this agility-type zombie. I first used one puppet to keep watch, while commanding 4 others, armed with fire axes, to move into position. Once the 5 puppets had converged, I directed them to mimic the gait of common zombies, maintaining a precise distance to form a semicircular encirclement, slowly closing in on the agility-type zombie as it fed upon the remains. I orchestrated this layout with great care, knowing that the speed of an agility-type zombie is formidable. Any rash action would risk the total annihilation of my puppets. When the distance closed to within 10 meters, I signaled the 5 puppets to charge simultaneously. Although the agility-type zombie possessed immense speed and successfully evaded the majority of the strikes, my tactical encirclement proved effective. Its right arm and back were slashed, leaving it wounded. However, one puppet had its axe lodged in the creature's ribs, and in a fit of rage, the zombie tore the puppet's head asunder. I immediately commanded 2 puppets to engage head-on as a feint, drawing the creature's focus, while ordering the other 2 to seize the opening and resume the assault. Though the agility-type zombie repelled the frontal attackers, it could not avoid the blade that struck its waist. A massive chunk of flesh was hewn away, and the wounded beast erupted in a burst of speed, tearing the head off yet another puppet. Nevertheless, the remaining 3 puppets surged forward without hesitation. Ultimately, the agility-type zombie could not escape the relentless flurry of axe blows and was brought down. Having successfully slain the target, I commanded the remaining puppets to extract the core before retreating rapidly to the apartment complex. Upon returning, I stationed the puppets to guard the building entrance, and personally carried the core up to the 6th floor. I discovered that this core was identical to the one I had previously consumed, a white stone marked with a crimson streak. It appears this agility-type zombie had also feasted upon cores to evolve. I swallowed the core, once again feeling a torrent of immense energy sweeping through my entire body. Once the process concluded, my strength had increased significantly. I was now able to manipulate puppet corpses, with my control range extending up to 3,000 meters. Emboldened by this surge in power, I selected 10 zombies with robust limbs from the horde, equipped them with fire axes, and established a formidable squad of undead warriors. Surveying this unit, I was brimming with confidence, harboring delusions of building a colossal zombie army, relying on my immense telekinetic power and countless puppet corpses to conquer all directions, and had even begun to envision a path toward absolute hegemony. Despite my extensive preparations, I did not forget the terrifying blood-colored monster in Building 1. After clashing with the agility-type zombie today, the comparison only served to highlight its terrifying nature. Although I now possess 10 puppet corpses, my understanding of this creature remained too limited to guarantee victory. I decided to send the puppet corpses to probe it in a few days to ascertain its true strength. After all, that monster was like a ticking time bomb, preventing me from finding any peace of mind. Within 3 days, I had renovated the 6th floor into a training room. Through combat practice against the zombies, I discovered that my physical constitution had improved comprehensively after my evolution. I nodded in satisfaction. This current body finally possessed the traits befitting a survivor of the apocalypse. After concluding my training, I commanded the puppet corpses to clear the remnants of the battle, washed the bloodstains from my body, and returned to the 7th floor to feed little Chiki. Seeing the innocent smile on the child's face, I could not help but smile in return. Her appetite, however, was growing better with each passing day. Once the feeding was finished, I used the toys I had scavenged to amuse Chiki. Yun Ruoxu watched her zombie father awkwardly trying to entertain her, and she was, for a moment, completely speechless. Although she appeared to be a newborn infant on the outside, her inner self was that of a mature, calm, and decisive supreme empress. However, since this was the well-intentioned gesture of her zombie father, she had no choice but to smile. though she did not expect that my seeing her cooperative smile would only make me put in more effort. Even Yun Ruokshu's eyelid could not help but twitch. Let it be. I shall simply consider this training for my own telekinetic power. After playing with Yun Ruokshu, I decided to probe the strength of the blood-colored monster in Building 1. From the ranks of the ordinary zombies, I selected 10 puppet corpses with tall and sturdy builds, armed them with fire axes, and fueled them with a formidable aura. Yet I still felt that it was not enough. Recalling the motorcycle helmet shop situated at the street corner, I led the corpse puppets to shatter the metal security gate. I equipped each corpse puppet with a full-face motorcycle helmet. After all, the head of a zombie remains its fatal weakness. Even if the body is torn asunder, as long as the head remains intact, it can still deliver a counterstrike with an axe. Having made these thorough preparations, I manipulated this transformed squad of corpse puppets from a distance, marching them imposingly toward Building Number 1. Since the range of my telekinetic radiation reaches 3,000 meters, and knowing I am no match in close-quarters combat, I chose to remain in the safety of Building Number 5 to command them. The corpse puppet squad began at the first floor, carefully sweeping through every room and corner, paying special attention to the ceiling to guard against the blood-colored monster, known for its wall-crawling ambushes. Very quickly, the puppets finished searching 4 floors. Yet they found no trace of the blood-colored monster. But they were unaware that the creature was clinging to a blind spot on the 5th floor ceiling like a spider. While waiting for the puppets to ascend, the monster suddenly launched an assault, sending the puppet nearest the entrance flying with a single blow. Fortunately, thanks to the protection of the helmet, the puppet did not perish. I quickly manipulated the group to counterattack, swinging their fire axes in retaliation. Had Yun Ruokshu been present, she would surely have recognized at a glance that the zombie before them was a liquor variant. According to the memories of Yun Ruokshu's past life, following the evolution brought by the apocalypse, this type of zombie caused massive casualties among survivors during the early stages of the world's end. Now enraged, the liquor utilized its lightning-fast claws to disable several corpse puppets. However, the puppets under my control disregarded their own injuries, tightly pinning the creature's claws. Subsequently, the axes of the other puppets struck directly at the liquor's head, trapping it within their encirclement. Although it managed to leap away, it still sustained continuous lacerations. I commanded several puppets to coordinate their strikes. Ultimately, under my precise manipulation, 3 puppets combined their strength to sever one of the liquor's limbs. The wounded liquor leaped onto the ceiling. I directed the corpse puppets to throw their axes in an attempt to suppress it. Yet, the liquor's speed was truly peerless, and the strength and accuracy of my low-level corpse puppets were significantly diminished. The liquor shattered the glass and escaped to the outer wall of the building, vanishing in the blink of an eye. I cursed silently, realizing I had underestimated its strength. Despite my meticulous preparations, I had allowed it to escape. The liquor's movements were exceptionally swift, capable of traversing the outer walls as easily as if it were walking on flat ground. This narrow escape would surely put it on guard. I felt fortunate that I had equipped the zombie puppets with helmets, thereby minimizing potential losses. However, my greatest concern now was that if this blood-colored monster were to sneak into Building Number 5 one day, everything would be ruined. If it were to discover the child and scale the exterior wall, it would be impossible to defend against such a surprise. I quickly composed myself, drafted a defensive plan, and deployed 3 heavily armed, robust zombie puppets to patrol Building Number 5. In this way, even if the monster were to infiltrate stealthily, I would be able to detect it in time while simultaneously dispatching other puppets to hunt for further evolved zombies. Initially, the absorption of 2 spirit cores to enhance my strength had left me feeling immensely invigorated, but this blood-colored monster made me realize that I was still nothing more than a mere shrimp. A surprise from Cheeky. At this moment, Yun Ruokshu was in the bedroom on the 7th floor, manipulating 2 cloth dolls that danced incessantly in the air. As a former Empress, she did not particularly care for such toys, but so as not to rebuff my goodwill, and having discovered that using the cloth dolls was an excellent method to practice her telekinetic powers, she continued. Sensing my return, Yun Ruokshu immediately pulled the dolls tightly to her chest. Seeing her playing happily as I entered, my mood was instantly mended. Little one, this world is far too dark and desolate. I only hope that when you grow up, you will not be disillusioned by this world. You must be able to grow up as carefree and untroubled as you are now. I hope that both of us can continue to survive in this apocalypse. I looked toward the bedroom window, my expression turning solemn, and then headed outside to gather wooden boards and nails to seal it shut. Yun Ruokshu watched her zombie father with a hint of confusion. For the past few days he rarely ventured out, and now he was boarding up the windows. Could it be that this zombie father of hers had sensed the overwhelming power of an evolved zombie, and, gripped by fear, sought to hide from the chaos of the outside world? After much contemplation, this seemed the most logical explanation. It appeared that her zombie father was quite the coward after all. Yet she overlooked one possibility: that I was performing these actions solely to protect her. Furthermore, following the anomaly of the blood moon, Many evolved individuals had emerged among humanity. While they were initially panicked and fled when confronted by ordinary zombies, in the later stages, even ordinary humans could easily hunt and kill these low-level zombies. Meanwhile, I continued to hammer away, securing the boards. After a long while, the fortification of the window was finally complete. While sealing the window, I deliberately left small gaps for ventilation and light. It both ensured our defenses remained intact and prevented Yun Ruoxu from feeling stifled in her environment, while also granting me the necessary time to react and contend with the blood-colored monster. For 3 days following that event, the blood-colored monster did not reappear, yet I continued to deploy the puppet to patrol the vicinity of building number 5, never daring to lower my guard. Suddenly, I sensed a ripple of mental energy wash over my consciousness. One of my puppets, while scavenging for supplies at a grocery store 2 streets away, had encountered a group of survivors. At first, the survivors mistook it for a common zombie, but their terror was absolute when the puppet turned, revealing its true nature. Among them was a sturdy man named Tizhu, who charged toward the puppet brandishing an iron rod. I manipulated the puppet to defend itself with a fire axe, yet as soon as we clashed I was struck by shock. The puppets I select are always those with relatively robust physical builds. Furthermore, a zombie's inherent strength already surpasses that of an ordinary human. Yet I had not expected the physical might of this man to be so immense. The savage force surging from the impact caused the puppet's arm to go numb. Possessing startling strength, Taizu knocked the axe from the puppet's grip and shattered its skull with a single strike. Taizu stepped before the fallen puppet, expressing a hint of bewilderment. This world has truly descended into absurdity. Even zombies have learned to wield weapons. Could this be some new form of evolved zombie? However, he did not ponder it for long. He gestured for his companions to gather the supplies quickly, fearful of attracting other evolved monsters. Seeing Taizu crush a zombie with a single blow, several of his companions lavished him with flattery as they looted. "It is fortunate that Brother Taizu is here. Otherwise, how could we have secured this much food?" Indeed, what are these so-called evolved zombies? With Brother Taizu's divine strength, aren't they just targets for a single strike? After all, to secure a sturdy reliance in these end times, one has no choice but to offer sycophantic smiles. The man called Tizhu, upon hearing the flattery of his companions, looked exceptionally pleased with himself. I felt a sense of astonishment that I could still encounter survivors more than a month into the apocalypse, particularly someone like Tizhu, who possessed the formidable strength displayed in his clash with the puppet. It is likely he is a human who has undergone evolution. After all, it is difficult for an ordinary person to possess such overwhelming power. Considering the complexities of human intellect and motivation, I grew concerned that my supplies would draw the unwanted attention of survivors, thereby endangering the safety of myself and little Shiki, and so I decided to cease sending puppets into that sector. The first steps, and the evolution of the great battle. Following the chance encounter with the survivor, several more days passed in the blink of an eye. I have currently ceased the collection of supplies, as the efficiency of these corpse puppets is truly unparalleled. Every room within building number 5 is now overflowing with all manner of provisions. Meanwhile, during this period, Yun Ruoxu has been relentlessly utilizing her psychokinetic powers to practice crawling upon the bed in the bedroom. With her control over her physical form increasing, the speed at which she maneuvers across the bed grows ever faster. Finally, with the aid of her psychokinesis, she has learned how to walk. At this very moment, I pushed open the door and stepped inside. Seeing the scene unfolding on the bed, I was so astonished my jaw nearly hit the floor. How could this child, only a few months old, already know how to stand and walk upright? My heart was filled with profound shock, which quickly gave way to overwhelming joy and amazement. Although I had long intended for Yun Ruoxu to adapt to life in the apocalypse as early as possible, I never expected her to master the ability to walk so soon. I carried Yun Ruoxu into the living room, believing the level ground would be more conducive to her training. Relying on her psychokinesis, Yun Ruoxu adapted quickly. However, due to the limitations of her physical strength and the expenditure of psychokinetic energy required to balance her body, she ceased her practice after only a short while. Thinking she was exhausted, I lifted her onto the sofa to rest. Afterwards, I took my steel blade to the balcony to practice my sword arts. Having consumed the energy core and undergone a comprehensive physical evolution, the steel blade whistled through the air with every swing, tearing through the wind. My current training is based merely on the martial arts memories from my previous life, mimicking simple stances and patterns. Yet I have always believed that as long as one's own power is sufficient, even wielding a brick would be enough to shatter an opponent's defenses. Yun Ruoxu watched this display, her expression filled with wonder. She realized that I was actively enhancing my strength. She had previously assumed I was merely an ordinary zombie who retained human consciousness and thus held an advantage when wielding weapons against low-level, mindless zombies. However, having been the human Empress in her previous life, Yun Ruoxu possesses vast experience in combat and the cultivation of martial techniques. She found the sword arts I was practicing to be utterly crude and worthless. Should I encounter an opponent with even the slightest bit of martial prowess, they would surely be able to crush her zombie father in an instant. Unaware of this, I saw Yun Ruoxu staring intently at me and mistakenly believed she was captivated by my swordsmanship. Feeling quite proud, over the following days, I allowed little Cheeky to roam freely within the living room on the 6th floor. Because I trained there frequently, the 6th floor was far more spacious and well lit than the boarded-up bedroom on the 7th. I spent my time on the balcony, refining my blade techniques and practicing combat. Yun Ruoxu stayed in the living room, practicing her gait, while secretly tempering her control over her psychokinetic powers. Under my guidance, the child's movements became more stable each day. She was truly a prodigy. Yet, a growing sense of crisis gnawed at Yun Ruoxu's heart. Following the blood moon phenomenon, both zombies and ravenous beasts were evolving at a maddening pace. As a common zombie like myself, I would eventually find no room left to survive. She realized she had to mature rapidly. At the very least, she could not remain a burden in this apocalyptic world. Just as we were both striving to bolster our strength, a furious roar erupted from outside. My mind stirred, and I instantly shifted my perception to that of my zombie puppets. On the residential complex's greenbelt, 2 zombies, mutated after the blood moon, were locked in a vicious struggle. One was a strength-type zombie, standing nearly 2.5 meters tall, its fists swinging with such force they whistled through the air, each strike carving deep craters into the earth. The other was the licker I had encountered previously. It crawled on all fours with lightning-fast agility, its razor-sharp claws gleaming like scimitars. These 2 powerful evolved zombies were locked in a stalemate, neither able to gain the upper hand. My heart burned with anticipation. This was an excellent opportunity. With 2 evolved zombies appearing simultaneously and exhausting each other, I could simply wait for them to both perish and reap the rewards, letting the tiger fight the mountain while I watched from afar. I bolted out the door and descended the stairs to assemble my team of zombie puppets. Hearing the commotion outside, Yun Ruoxu was left speechless. She was unaware of my ability to manipulate the undead. She assumed I was recklessly charging out to confront the evolved zombies. However, since her own movements were still unnatural and unrefined, she could only remain in the room and offer silent prayers. As for me, while descending the stairs, I summoned all 10 of my fully armed zombie puppets and stealthily approached the greenbelt. After a grueling and protracted battle, the 2 monsters had finally exhausted each other. The blood-colored creature had managed to tear off one of the strength-type zombies' arms. Ultimately, the strength-type collapsed and perished, leaving the blood-colored creature to claim a Pyrrhic victory. Just as it prepared to extract the essence core, my squad of zombie puppets surged forward to surround it. The blood-colored creature roared in anger, attempting to intimidate the puppets. But since they were under my control, they were unaffected by its aura. The 10 puppets swung their fire axes with reckless abandon. The open terrain deprived the beast of its advantage to scale walls and evade. Before long, it was completely cornered and suppressed. 2 essence cores from the evolved zombies were now firmly in my grasp. Overjoyed, I frantically manipulated the zombie puppets to return to the apartment complex. These 2 essence cores had mostly turned crimson. Clearly, they had devoured quite a few of their own kind. A miracle occurred. Upon returning to the 3rd floor, I could not restrain myself, and swallowed both essence cores at once. This time, the energy far surpassed the previous surge, but the most significant transformation was within my consciousness. A terrifying mental force flooded my mind, instantly exceeding my threshold of endurance, and I collapsed before I could offer any resistance. On the 7th floor, Yun Ruoxu tossed and turned on the sofa in distress. After so much time had passed without a sound, she had lost all hope, convinced that I had perished at the hands of the evolved zombies. My poor zombie father. Why could you not wait for me just a little longer? Just as she was drowning in sorrow, the door lock clicked. Yun Ruoxu jerked her head up, a smile instantly blooming across her face. She leaped from the sofa and stumbled toward me, crying out, "Dad!" I felt as if I had been struck by lightning, standing rooted to the spot. Little Cheeky had learned to call me father. I have lived 2 lifetimes, yet I have never even had a girlfriend. This miraculous sensation of suddenly becoming a father left me so overwhelmed with emotion that I did not know how to react. Yun Ruoxu herself was stunned by her own overwhelming excitement. The words she held in her heart were beyond her control, escaping her lips before she could stop them, though she soon relaxed, for she possessed the soul of her past life, and speech was never truly a barrier for her. She simply had not yet practiced articulation since her rebirth. As for me, I did not think that deeply into it. I only felt that little Cheeky was a peerless prodigy, having mastered speech on her own, without a teacher. I let out a low, excited growl to express my joy, though it was a pity that I could not form actual words. With this evolution complete, the number of zombie puppets I could manipulate had increased to 30. The range of my mental projection had reached an astonishing 8 kilometers. Possessing such power, I immediately set to work on expanding my army. As for Yun Ruoxu, after eating her fill, She no longer desired to drink powdered milk. She opened her mouth to reveal 2 rows of tiny teeth, as if to tell me she had no interest in the milk. After some time, there were those who were so clumsy that they understood even less than little Kiki. Thus, the child ran up to the 6th floor to go about her business. Besides, rice porridge blended with powdered milk into a paste. The little one took the spoon and began to feed himself. He even criticized my clumsiness, saying, "Father, perhaps it is better if I eat on my own." Watching him eat with such gusto, a swell of emotion filled my heart. Zhao Qiki has finally grown up. Once my strength had improved, a daring thought emerged in my mind. Could it be possible to manipulate evolved zombies? Soon enough, the opportunity arose. A puppet corpse several kilometers away discovered a stray, strength-type evolved zombie. I took the puppet corpse, disguised as an ordinary zombie, and slowly approached the target. Within 100 meters, I unleashed my telekinetic power. The mental defenses of an evolved zombie were indeed far stronger than those of an ordinary one, putting up clear resistance. Yet, my evolved telekinetic power was far more formidable, quickly shattering its mental defenses and successfully turning it into my own puppet. I named it Big Fatty. Its build was exceptionally brawny, with arms resembling iron cages. I retrieved 2 heavy iron hammers, each weighing over 100 jin, from a hardware store to equip it. As it swung them, the wind whistled with raw force. Standing at the entrance of our residential complex, it looked no different from a guardian deity. With Big Fatty on guard, my sense of security increased exponentially. Shortly after, I subdued another evolved zombie, this one of the agility type, naming it Lightning. Its speed was blistering, and it excelled at wielding dual blades, perfectly compensating for Big Fatty's lack of mobility. With 1 for offense and 1 for defense, complemented by over 20 ordinary puppet corpses, I felt I could roam this apocalypse unhindered. At the same time, while scavenging for supplies, Big Fatty encountered a giant mutated hound. Its body length reached nearly 2 meters, its fur was thick and coarse, and its frame was as sturdy as a wild boar. This was the first time I had witnessed a mutated creature in this post-apocalyptic world. I commanded Big Fatty to engage the beast. With a single strike, Big Fatty shattered the giant hound's front claw, immediately following up with another blow that crushed its skull. From the brain of the giant hound, I extracted a white-colored spirit core. Indeed, mutated beasts also possess spirit cores. I hauled the carcass of the giant hound back to the residential complex, consuming a portion of the flesh and blood myself to satiate my hunger, while leaving the rest for Big Fatty. The raw, fresh flesh caused the wounds on Big Fatty's body to heal at a pace visible to the naked eye. After devouring the spirit core of the mutated hound and that of another strength-type zombie I encountered, my mental power was once again elevated. However, Yun Ruoxu remained completely unaware of these developments. Taking advantage of my absence, Yun Ruoxu, upon investigation, she discovered that the entire building, from the 3rd to the 6th floor, was filled to the brim with supplies. Powdered milk was stacked like mountains, bottled water reached all the way to the ceiling, and there was a vast quantity of infant supplies and food. Heavens, just how much had this zombie hoarded? She was astonished, and her initial suspicions were further solidified. A common zombie could never have transported such an immense amount of supplies on its own. She surmised that it possessed an earth-shifting ability, allowing it to move underground to transport items rapidly. As she made her way to the balcony on the 1st floor, she saw the Big Fatty standing guard at the entrance with twin axes in hand, which only reinforced her belief that my father must have relied on an earth-shifting ability to come and go. In reality, Big Fatty is merely a zombie puppet under my control, but Yun Ruoxu is unaware of this. She secretly resolved that once her strength is sufficient, she will eliminate this behemoth first, to clear the path for my father. She also unearthed real estate contracts, learning that her location was Jianghai City, and hurriedly searched through the memories of her previous life. Jianghai City was home to 2 renowned powerhouses. One was a policewoman with the ability to resurrect 9 times, known as the 9-Death Demon Mirror, and the other was a mutated white bear, wielding the power of thunder, known as the Thunderbolt Guardian. If she could recruit the 9-Death Demon Mirror before she reached her peak, it would prove to be a tremendous asset in the future. Not long after, a military helicopter soared across the city skyline, scattering leaflets announcing that the Jianghai military had established a survivor base outside the city. I glanced at them before carelessly tossing them aside. I am a zombie, and the survivor bases of humanity have nothing to do with me. As for Yun Ruoxu, she let out a cold laugh and crumpled the leaflet into a ball. In her past life, she had resided within a survivor base, a place overflowing with darkness and injustice, where she was forced to endure the infighting of humanity. She would rather stay by the side of a zombie father than return to such a place. While I was continuously strengthening my power, police officer Su Mukin from the nearby precinct led several colleagues to the Sunshine Residential Complex in search of trucks. She intended to commandeer a vehicle to lead survivors out of the city, but at the entrance of the complex, she encountered Big Fatty. Su Mukin threw a stone at Big Fatty in an attempt to lure it away, and upon seeing no reaction, she drew her pistol and fired a shot. The moment I saw her draw her weapon and aim at Big Fatty, I was overcome with rage. Regardless of her intentions, anyone who dares to fire upon my zombie puppet deserves nothing but death. I commanded Big Fatty to intercept the bullet with its axe, and immediately afterward, it swung its arm, sending the colossal weapon hurtling straight towards Sumukin. She had never expected a zombie capable of such a projectile attack. Unable to dodge in time, she was struck by the axe and died on the spot. The police officers who had entered the complex were likewise completely annihilated by my zombie puppets. I scavenged several police-issued firearms and ammunition from their remains. However, late that night, a bizarre event transpired. The corpse of Sumukin suddenly reanimated amidst a crimson halo. Her body, previously shattered with broken bones and torn tendons, was now as pristine as before. Her cultivation base had not only recovered, but had surged twofold. Watching through the eyes of the Big Fatty, I was struck with disbelief. What manner of sorcery is this? Has this policewoman truly returned from the grave? Sumukin herself wore an expression of bewilderment. Upon inspecting her body, she discovered not a single trace of her former injuries. Both her strength and speed had achieved an astonishing breakthrough. She realized that she might be an evolved individual, possessing the ability to resurrect upon death. The following day, Sumuchakin returned, this time accompanied by an even larger contingent of officers, armed to the teeth. My fury reached the heavens. I had spared this woman once, yet she possessed no fear of death, returning only to provoke me further. This time, I commanded 3 evolved zombies to surround and assault her. Yet following her resurrection, Sumukin's strength had skyrocketed. She maneuvered with ease amidst the encirclement of the 3 zombies. Even with their firearms discharging, she managed to evade the majority of the incoming projectiles. Eventually, I seized an opening and wounded her once more. This time, I crushed her body completely. I ensured there was no room for error. Yet that very night, she resurrected again. Furthermore, her strength had doubled yet again. Is this truly happening? Is this woman cheating fate itself? I was left speechless. To die and be reborn, and to emerge even stronger each time. But what troubled me most was the presence of a hidden, evolved individual lurking in the shadows, assisting Sumukin. Every time my attacks were poised to strike her, they would be stalled for a fraction of a second by an unknown force. This mysterious power could even force bullets to veer off course in mid-air. In truth, the evolved individual hiding in the dark was none other than Yun Ruokshu. Having observed from afar, she had deduced that a zombie king resided within the residential complex, silently controlling the horde. Utilizing a secret technique to transmit her voice directly, she established contact with Sumukin. Disguising herself as a mysterious expert known as the Lurker, she formulated a plan to slay the zombie king together. Believing she had found a kindred spirit, Sumukin gladly accepted the alliance. That evening, Sumukin lured the Big Fatty away from the gates and successfully infiltrated the complex, only to be intercepted by me before the 5th building. In order to protect Zhao Chiki on the 7th floor, I gathered every corpse puppet surrounding building number 5. Gripping my machete, I struck with a primal fury. Every maneuver and technique was vicious to the extreme, devoid of my usual restraint. Yun Ruokshu observed silently from the 2nd floor of building number 1, using her time manipulation abilities time and again to intercept my fatal strikes. Yet she limited her intervention to ensuring Sumukin was not slain, strictly preventing her from harming me in return. Sumukin was left entirely bewildered. Whose side was this hidden one actually on? Each time I lunged at the zombie, my attacks were thwarted. Yun Ruokshu merely transmitted a single command. You are not to touch this zombie. The battle intensified into a gruesome stalemate. Sumukin fought desperately to breach building number 5, but I held my ground against her with unrelenting force. I let out a series of mournful, savage roars in the sheer intensity of my rage. The desperate need to safeguard my dearest one caused the temperature of the entire residential district to plummet. It was at this moment that the truth finally dawned upon Yun Ruokshu. As Sumukin charged toward building number 5, every zombie in the complex surged madly toward the building in defense. They were not protecting some zombie king. They were protecting the child on the 7th floor, and the one who had issued the command for the horde to sacrifice themselves in her defense was none other than the girl's 3 zombies. Could it be that those 3 were the true zombie kings? All the clues finally aligned at this very moment. The girl's 3 zombies were the very zombie kings she had been hunting for so long. How foolish I have been. Yun Ruokshu had nearly excavated the crystal core of her own father, only to repay him with death. Having realized the truth, she immediately ceased her support for Sumukin. Deprived of the assistance from the shadows, Sumukin immediately plummeted into a disadvantageous position. I commanded my 3 evolved zombies and coordinated with my own body, treating her like a punching bag and brutally trampling her. You hidden one, you have truly been the bane of my existence. This was Sumukin's final thought before she was struck unconscious. After rendering her senseless, I left a note detailing my conditions. Live well. If you die, Every member of the police bureau shall be buried along with you. Overcome by a sudden surge of compassion, Sun Mukin wept. And ultimately, she acquiesced. She could not bring herself to allow others to forfeit their lives on her account. Part 4. Achieving the third order breakthrough, and hunting the tyrant. The subsequent days gradually descended into an eerie calm. Each day, I engaged in combat training with Shandyang. I even specifically sourced a learning tablet and flashcards for little Cheeky. The child's growth rate is truly dizzying. She can already read, write, and perform basic arithmetic. I cannot help but feel that my daughter possesses the aptitude of a great emperor. As for Yun Ruoxu, she pretends to babble along with the learning machine, though she feels utterly helpless inside. In her past life, she was a postgraduate student at a prestigious university, yet now, she is forced to undergo infant education once more. Furthermore, every day while I am away, she secretly sneaks downstairs to converse with Sumukin. The two females, one mature and one young, get along remarkably well. Sumukin remains completely unguarded toward this innocent, adorable child, divulging every piece of information she possesses. Meanwhile, Yun Ruoxu silently calculates how to bring this 9-kill demonic realm under her control. After all, the opponent is an entity with the potential for future breakthroughs, and if she can be recruited, she would become a monumental asset. Upon discovering that little Cheeky enjoys chatting with Sumukin, I did not object. Regardless, it is a good thing for the child to have someone with whom she can communicate normally. However, I ensure that Sumukin's iron chains are firmly locked, and that Lightning One keeps a strict watch at all times. Suddenly one day, the broadcast relayed fresh intelligence. A never-before-seen Tier 2 tyrant zombie had appeared on a distant street. Both arms of this zombie had completely mutated for combat. Its strength and speed were terrifying to the extreme. A human evolver was being hunted by it, fleeing for his life. That man was Taizu, the robust warrior who had previously clashed with my subordinates. The wounds on the tyrant zombie's body were capable of automatic regeneration. Taizu's strikes proved useless, and he only narrowly escaped with his life by ducking into a narrow alleyway. My heart stirred. This tyrant is far too powerful, and a head-on confrontation would be unwise. But I have a superior strategy. I commanded Lightning One to lure the tyrant toward the police station. Sumukin happened to be returning from a supply run, and upon seeing the tyrant, she did not hesitate for a second, drawing its attention to protect the people at the police station. When the snipe and the clam grapple, the fisherman benefits. After a fierce skirmish with the tyrant, Sumukin realized she could not overcome it, and lured it to a gas station, detonating the fuel tanks with a single shot. The gas station erupted into a violent inferno. The tyrant struggled out of the sea of flames, charred all over, yet it still refused to die. However, its injuries were critical, so I immediately ordered Pang and Lightning One to charge forward. The heavily wounded tyrant could not possibly withstand them. The frantic, crushing blows from Pang's steel staff, weighing over a ton, quickly rendered the creature unable to stand. Lightning One seized the opportunity to unleash a flurry of slashes with its steel blade, finally slaying the tyrant. After extracting the Tier 2 gold core, I was overcome with immense joy. Yet this time, I did not rush to consume it. First, I prepared a meal for Zhao Cheeky, and ensured our defenses were firmly in place. Only then did I head to Building 4 to swallow the golden core. The vast, silver-like energy directly propelled me to successfully break through to the third rank, causing my physical constitution to undergo a qualitative leap. My mental energy surged and multiplied exponentially. My range of control expanded from 10,000 meters to several tens of kilometers. The number of ordinary puppets I could control rose to the hundreds. Even second-rank evolved zombies could now be effortlessly commanded. I was now capable of crushing the speed-type lightning zombies in a race, and could repel the elite big fatty zombies in a direct confrontation. The version of me that exists now is finally what a survivor in this apocalyptic world should look like. Not long after my breakthrough to the third rank, I subjugated another second-rank elite zombie, one the size of a small car. I named him Pang, and equipped him with a heavy metal longstaff weighing over a ton. With one strike, Pang's staff can flatten a car into scrap metal. When launched outward, it can even pierce through thick concrete walls. With Pang standing guard, even evolved zombies dare not approach the gates of the residential complex. At the same time, Yun Ruoxu also quietly achieved a breakthrough to the third rank. Following her breakthrough, her psychokinetic power grew immensely. She became capable of telekinetically launching iron nails at blinding speeds. Combined with her temporal control abilities, she is now capable of taking a life silently and without a trace. Across the entire wasteland, she has become a peak powerhouse among humanity. Part 5. The Blood Slaughter Saber Technique and the Decision to Relocate. I know not when, but a manual titled Blood Slaughter Saber Technique suddenly appeared at my feet. Assuming it was a secret manual left behind by some mysterious expert, I immediately began to study. Little did I know, it was actually written by Yun Ruoxu in a notebook, and tossed to me in secret. This saber technique utilizes blood to refine and condense killing intent. Once mastered, one no longer requires a sharp weapon. One's own aura of blood-borne killing intent becomes the sharpest blade under heaven. After practicing this technique, my progress was rapid, and my combat power saw an extraordinary increase. However, this tranquility was soon shattered. A 5-man squad of evolved humans from a survivor base arrived in Shanghai City to scavenge for supplies. Upon discovering that the supplies near the Sunshine Residential Complex had been entirely cleared out, they followed the puppets currently transporting supplies back to the complex. They scaled the walls under the cover of night, unaware that the very moment their feet touched the ground, I had already detected them. My legion of corpse puppets swiftly surrounded them. The evolved zombie, Lightning Number 2, instantly slaughtered one of the evolved humans. Big Fatty's twin hammers forced 2 melee-type evolved humans to retreat repeatedly. Amidst the chaos, I took action myself. Executing a horizontal strike empowered by the blood slaughter saber technique, I sliced the final fleeing evolved human clean in two. From their remains, I scavenged the identification papers of a survivor base. I realized that human factions are developing much faster than I had anticipated. Sunshine Residential District will inevitably be exposed sooner or later. I decided to relocate, setting my sights on the Qingshui farm in the suburbs, a spacious location with arable land. Far removed from human factions, it possesses an ample supply of zombies to replenish my forces, and most importantly, it offers Xiao Qiki a much better environment in which to grow. Xiao Qiki cannot remain confined within this concrete and steel structure forever. She needs sunlight, fresh air, and fresh vegetables. Mentioning fresh greens fills me with pity for the little one. For so long, her diet has been far too monotonous. Every day it is nothing but powdered milk, egg-fried rice, and smooth porridge. She has not even seen a single leaf of a vegetable. Once we reach the farm, I can command my corpse puppets to clear the land for cultivation so that Xiao Qiki can enjoy fresh produce. There is one matter left to resolve before I depart. Su Muqin. Her resurrection ability is far too troublesome. I cannot keep her, yet I cannot kill her. Since I am leaving this place, it is best to simply set her free. Never to meet again, I informed Xiao Qiki of my decision. The sensible child nodded and asked, "Big sister, would you like to come with us?" Deep down, I knew that given Sumukin's nature, she cannot abandon the survivors in her territory, and she would never agree to follow us. Seizing a moment when I was distracted, Yun Ruokshu stealthily slipped a piece of paper into Sumukin's hand, inscribed with the words, Qingshui Farm. Before leaving, Sumukin asked Yun Ruokshu, "Do you still remember our promise?" Yun Ruokshu smiled and replied, "If one day you discover that this world is not as beautiful as you believe it to be, when you no longer wish to protect the others, remember to come and protect me." Part 6. The Collapse of Su Muqin and the Grand Migration. Su Muqin limped back to the police bureau, only to witness a scene. The very survivors she had risked her life to protect had degenerated into flesh-eating demons. They slaughtered every officer who refused to join their ranks, eventually murdering Su Muqin herself. Su Muqin was resurrected for the 3rd time, her strength surging to new, unprecedented heights. With her own hands, she executed every single cannibal, sparing none. The last young man knelt on the ground, pleading, "Officer Su, you are a good person. I only wish to survive. It was not intentional." As Su Muqin turned to depart, the sound of a firearm being cocked echoed from behind her. She lunged forward with lightning speed, shattering his ribs with a single strike. Why must you deceive me?" Gazing across the field of corpses, Su Muqin felt her heart turn to ash. She recalled the words of Yun Ruokshu. What if those people were never worth your protection in the first place? Indeed, were such base, wretched animals truly worthy of her sacrifice? Glancing at the note in her hand, inscribed with Qingshui Farm, Su Muqin took one final look at the police station, to which she had intended to dedicate her life, then turned and vanished into the night. "Little Cheeky, I am coming for you." At the point of departure, 5 heavy-duty trucks roared out from the Sunshine Residential District. The driver's seats were occupied by zombie drivers, followed closely by hundreds of armored zombies equipped with full military gear. The spectacle of zombies operating heavy trucks left the survivors along the road paralyzed with astonishment. An evolved human, scavenging for supplies in a store, bore witness to the 5 heavy trucks thundering past. Behind the steering wheels were nothing but the ferocious visages of the undead. Am I experiencing hallucinations? Since when can zombies drive trucks? Throughout the journey, evolved zombies were constantly drawn to the commotion caused by the convoy. Every single one was captured, manipulated by telekinetic force, and absorbed into the zombie legion. Far from diminishing, their numbers continued to grow exponentially. As they passed near the Shanghai City Zoo, a second-tier mutated giant python, its body gleaming with golden scales, coiled across the street, completely blocking their path. Its body stretched over 20 meters in length, its scales shimmering with a metallic, golden radiance. The 2 scout zombies were immediately snatched up and swallowed whole. I commanded Fatty 2 to take the lead, wielding a steel staff to confront the beast. A single strike from the staff landed squarely on the giant python's head, leaving it reeling in a daze. Fatty 1 and the other fierce zombies flanked the creature, preventing it from making any further move. The agile-type zombies swarmed forth like a disturbed hive, their steel blades relentlessly hacking into the python's hide. At the critical moment, the tyrant zombie plummeted from the high-rise building. Its razor-sharp claws plunged deep into the serpent's vital point, tearing open a massive, gaping wound. Erpang followed closely behind, bringing his staff down with enough force to shatter the giant python's skull. After extracting the second-order crystal core, I decided to leave it for Erpang to consume. Crystal cores below the third order have become useless to me, yet they can significantly empower a zombie thrall. Quality always outweighs quantity. I intend to forge an elite army comprised solely of high-level evolved zombies. Yun Ruoxu stared at the python's massive carcass, her eyes gleaming with such intensity they seemed to sparkle. Daddy, I want to eat snake meat. The poor child has been living on powdered milk and egg-fried rice for so long she is nearly sick of it. Seeing a beast of this size, she found herself completely unable to tear her eyes away. However, I remained uncertain whether the meat of these mutated creatures was safe for human consumption. I chose to hold off, resolving to find a human survivor later to serve as a test subject. Wait until Daddy confirms it is safe, and then I will prepare it for you. Though clearly disappointed, Yun Ruoxu understood the necessity of my caution. In her heart, she knew full well that not only was the meat of mutated beasts edible, but it was also highly nourishing. Yet she had no way to explain it clearly. Our convoy pressed onward, the high-rise buildings on either side of the road gradually fading away, replaced by the desolate, expansive wilderness of the outskirts. I glanced at the map. We were only 10 minutes away from Qingshui Farm. The evening twilight bathed the sky in a hue as crimson as blood. I watched the scenery blur past the window, then looked to my side, where Xiao Qiki was leaning against the glass, silently observing the world outside. The remnants of the setting sun were reflected within the depths of her eyes. Since her rebirth, this was the first time the child had left the Sunshine Residential District to witness the outside world. I reached out and gently pinched her small, delicate cheek. Xiao Qiki looked up and offered me a sweet smile. Daddy, the outside world is so vast. Indeed, the world is vast, and it is equally perilous. But no matter what shape this world takes, as long as Xiao Qiki is by my side, everything has meaning. On the distant horizon, the silhouette of a sprawling farm flickered in the fading light. That would be our new home, Qingshui Farm. Yet, tens of kilometers behind us, amidst the ruins of Jianghai City, a figure radiating a terrifying aura was trailing our tire tracks, in hot pursuit. The gentleness and kindness in Sumukin's eyes had vanished without a trace, replaced by coldness and despair. Yet, as she recalled the little girl who had smiled at her while clutching a milk bottle, the corner of her mouth involuntarily curled upward. Upon arriving at the Qingshui Farm, I followed the map's directions along the narrow path through the woods. Finally, the grand entrance of the farm came into view. Flanking the steel gates were defensive barriers constructed from wooden stakes and wire mesh. Warning signs for high-voltage electricity hung from the fences, which bore clear marks of violent sabotage. Sitting atop the truck, I surveyed the farm with a sense of satisfaction. The Qingshui Farm was surrounded by an eerie silence, making it unlikely to attract unwanted attention. The grounds were far more expansive than the Sunshine Residential District, ample enough to accommodate myself, Kiki, and my massive army of zombies. Most crucially, this location did not feel oppressive, making it an ideal environment for the child to grow. Father, we have arrived. Yun Ruoxu stretched her limbs. I nodded, immediately dispatching a squad of zombies through the breached fence to scout the area. No sooner had the zombies entered than my brow furrowed deeply. The interior of the farm was saturated with dried, brownish-black bloodstains. I focused my search on the vegetable gardens, only to discover that the crop fields had been utterly decimated. Scattered across the soil were massive, monstrous footprints, indicating the presence of mutated beasts within the farm. At that very moment, the sounds of a struggle and bestial roars echoed from deep within the property. I commanded the zombies to follow the sounds and push further inward. In the livestock enclosure, we discovered a colossal, mutated bull. Most absurdly, this bovine creature had sprouted fangs even more exaggerated than those of a lion or a tiger, and it was currently gnawing on the carcass of an unidentified creature. What is happening? Have even cattle turned to scavenging flesh? Upon detecting the zombies, the giant bull charged forward without a moment's hesitation. This beast had reached the second order. Ordinary zombies were simply no match for it. I directed Erpang and Tyrant No. 1 to intercept the creature. Erpang struck the bull's skull with his club, sending it reeling and dazed. Seizing the opportunity, Tyrant No. 1 drove his elbow into the beast, tearing open a massive gash. Yet the hide covering the bull's body had become incredibly resilient after its evolution. Fortunately, it lacked the intelligence to evade. After several exchanges, it finally collapsed to the ground. The sharp claws of the tyrant pierced its skull, extracting a second-order, orange-tinted energy core that was. Having dealt with the giant serpent, I continued my search. Near the pond on the west side, I discovered a wide, dragging trail along the bank. As I commanded the corpse puppet to approach the water's edge, a colossal, soft-shelled turtle lunged from the depths, snapping off the puppet's ankle in a single bite. What an immense creature! Its shell is incredibly resilient. The corpse puppet struck it with a heavy blow, but the backlash was so severe that its own wrist snapped and buckled. Part 8. Establishing a defensive perimeter, and Chi-Chi's secret of beast taming. For the moment, I had no plans to slay it. I simply dispatched 2 corpse puppets to stand guard by the bank, preventing it from climbing ashore. As the old saying goes, 1,000-year turtle, a 10,000-year tortoise. Once I confirm the meat of these mutated beasts is edible, I will save it for Chi-Chi to nourish her body. After turning the farm inside out twice and ensuring it was secure, I began a large-scale clearing operation. Once the residential area was completely renovated, I led Chi-Chi by the hand into the farm. Is this truly the future home for father and me? It looks quite impressive indeed. Yun Ruokshu examined her surroundings with curiosity, her eyes filled with anticipation. Upon moving in, my primary concern was security. Pang stood guard at the southern gate with a heavy club, while Lightning 1, 2, and 3 commanded a squad of corpse puppets to patrol the other 3 sides. Pang and Tyrant 1 remained close to protect Chi-Chi. I had transformed the entire farm into an impenetrable steel fortress. Watching Chi-Chi in her deep slumber, a surge of accomplishment rose within me. Sleep peacefully, little Chi-Chi. From this day forward, Qingshui Farm is our new home. The following day, when Chi-Chi awakened, I had already prepared breakfast, complete with a plate of fresh fruit on the table. In the orchard to the north of the farm, there were still plenty of fruits hanging from the branches. Chi-Chi's eyes brightened. The sweet, fragrant scent of the fruit left her utterly enchanted. After she had eaten her fill, she stepped outside and watched the squads of well-armed zombies patrolling the farm in perfect order. Father is truly formidable. Your methods of manipulating these zombies are far more masterful than those of the Zombie King. She clung to my leg, playfully begging for a walk, so I eventually relented and led her toward the vegetable fields. Chi was stunned to see the zombies I commanded working the land. In my previous life, I hailed from the countryside. Having worked the fields alongside my grandparents, I possessed significant experience in agriculture. I was confident I could reclaim the vegetable plots that had once been laid to waste. At the same time, I fed the 2 Rank 2 mutated beast cores I had previously obtained to Pang. Pang successfully advanced to Rank 3. His physique ballooned, growing until he possessed the bulk of a heavy truck. Pitch-black scales began to sprout across his body, impenetrable to steel, even capable of deflecting bullets. I tested him with a machete, but it left only a faint mark upon his scales. With this, Pang has become the primary battle tank of this zombie-infested world. With this 3rd-rank great general guarding the main gate, my confidence increased tenfold. At the same time, I discovered a new path to strength. Since high-level zombies are so scarce, I decided to nurture my own corpse puppet using gold nuclei. During this time, Shiki was not idle either. The child would secretly sneak to the fish pond to feed the old mutated turtle. For 3 consecutive days she nourished it with the meat of a giant mutated beast, and hidden within the flesh was a drop of her own fresh blood. On the 3rd day, she utilized the ancient beast taming technique, obtained from a secret realm in her previous life, to forge a contract with the giant turtle. From that moment on, she could issue simple commands to the old turtle, and even communicate through thoughts. She even imparted an intake and exhalation cultivation technique to the creature, intending to nurture it into a powerful existence comparable to the Xuanwu tortoise of her past life. I was completely unaware of these developments, assuming Shiki simply favored the old turtle as a pet, and thus I left her be. Following this, I constructed a small amusement park for Chiki. I brought back the carousel and other equipment from the city's recreational center, and since there was no electricity, I modified the mechanisms to be powered by zombie labor. Upon seeing this, although Chiki felt no genuine interest in such childish toys, she understood this was an expression of her father's affection, and feigned joy to please me. Yet, unexpectedly, having been an orphan in her past life, she had never known such carefree play. Her dormant, childlike spirit suddenly awakened, and she played until she lost all track of time. As we sat on the carousel chasing one another, if one were to overlook the corpses providing the physical labor to turn the ride, it was truly a heartwarming scene. Part 9. The Second Realm Spy and the 4th Rank Breakthrough. However, while Lightning Number 1 was busy transporting the amusement equipment, an evolved being with the ability to turn invisible, named Li Mo, had been observing from the shadows. He followed the transport truck of Lightning Number 1 all the way to Qingshui Farm. Upon witnessing the scene within the farm, his worldview collapsed. He finally discovered that a human child was actually living amongst a horde of zombies. Surmising that Chiki was the one controlling these zombies, greed surged within him, and he plotted to abduct her to seize control of this zombie legion. As Limo stealthily crept into Chiki's bedroom and prepared to strike with his dagger, he froze in place, unable to move. Yun Ruoshu had cast time stasis. She then leaped forward and dealt him a strike that sent him flying outside. She then utilized a soul control technique obtained from a secret manual in her past life, engraving a blood-red rune directly into his sea of consciousness and took absolute control over his life and death. Do you wish to live, or do you choose death? Limo did not hesitate for a moment, choosing to surrender and submit. Yun Ruoshu ordered him to infiltrate the Zhanghai City survivor base as a spy, requiring him to report back with intelligence at regular intervals. I was completely oblivious to these developments, occupied only by watching Shiki play happily in the farm every day. As time passed, I continued to harvest evolved zombies in the city to accumulate spirit cores. During this process, I unexpectedly crossed paths with Sumukin once again on a nearby street. Damn it. Why has this woman tracked me all the way here? It turned out that after the incident at the police station, Sumukin had trailed me all this way, driven solely by her desire to find Shiki. Her journey had been arduous and miserable. She had been tormented to the brink of a nervous breakdown by that vengeful, burrowing zombie. I knocked her unconscious and secured her with iron chains next to the slide in the amusement park. Since this capture, Sumukin's temperament seemed to have undergone a profound transformation. Having endured the betrayal by the survivors at the police station, she had become utterly disillusioned with humanity. Caring only about protecting Shiki seized the opportunity to slowly draw her in, bringing her food and engaging her in conversation. Since the apocalypse began, Sumukin had finally found a peaceful existence, free from the constant fear of starvation or danger. She even had to admit to herself that living alongside the Zombie King was far more comfortable than dwelling among human society. Meanwhile, I continued to steadily strengthen my own power. By sweeping through the evolved zombies in the southern part of the city and nourishing them with spirit cores, the number of second-order zombie puppets under my command reached over 30. One night, after I hunted a mutated beast on Mount Huanglong, I harvested a third-order spirit core. Combined with the constant yields from my zombie breeding grounds in the stadium, I finally accumulated the 4 third-order spirit cores required to break through to the 4th order. I swallowed them all in one breath. I achieved my breakthrough to the 4th order right there on the spot, and my spiritual power surged exponentially. With my spiritual power multiplied, my range of control expanded to 50 kilometers. My body underwent a comprehensive transformation. Aside from my dark red pupils, I was, at a glance, indistinguishable from a living human. Subsequently, I cultivated 4 4th-order zombie puppets in one go. At the same time, Yun Ruoksu also achieved a breakthrough to the 4th order in the shadows. Her telekinetic power surged to the point where she could fly for extended periods and cast various elemental secret arts. She utilized a psychic art to control small honeybees to monitor the perimeter of the farm, and while I was distracted, she performed the blood-refining art on the blood-sucking demonic, bringing it under his absolute control. Those blood-sucking demon vines are mutated plants that I transplanted from the Huanglong Mountains. They drain the flesh and blood from any living creature, yet they remain entirely indifferent to zombies. I planted them 1 kilometer outside the farm to establish a defensive line. Thanks to the girl taking the initiative to train them further, this line of defense has transformed into a lethal formation that she can manipulate at will. Part 10. Undercurrents surge, drawing the attention of the human base. But a crisis looms. The Zhanghai survivor base has introduced the concept of the Zombie King for the first time, following the emergence of a zombie tide on their maps. The previous experiences of the Zhang squad in the southern part of the city have drawn the attention of the High Command, leading them to dispatch a reconnaissance unit comprised of stealth operatives like Li Mo to investigate. After Yun Ruokshu sensed Li Mo's proximity, she flew out from the farm in the middle of the night to meet him. She ordered him to return and report that no Zombie King had been discovered, yet she mercilessly executed the squad captain, who refused to obey, and used soul energy to control the remaining 3 members. However, Wang Zhen was incredibly sharp. Upon noticing something amiss with the stealth squad, she immediately initiated a hypnotic interrogation. The restriction of the soul energy triggered, causing the 4 stealth operatives to explode and perish on the spot. As expected, there was a problem. The supreme commander of the base was furious and decided to dispatch 3 elite combat squads toward the southern part of the city to carry out a search and capture mission. Sensing the death of Li Mo's group through the shock in their souls, Yun Ruokshu realized that her secrets had been exposed. A storm is approaching, yet she remains entirely unfazed. Given her current strength, unless humanity mobilizes a large-scale armed force, squads of evolved humans are fundamentally no match for her. And so, she poured all of her focus into cultivation. Once she achieves a breakthrough to the 5th rank, she will have the confidence to face even the military might of human weaponry. As for me, I remain completely unaware of these surging undercurrents, still hunting mutated beasts in the Huanglong Mountains to accumulate gold cores for the Corpse Puppet Legion. The 3 elite combat squads touched down on the outer perimeter of the southern city district. Wang Zhen assumed the role of commander-in-chief, with captains Li Feng and Zhang Hai providing support. Within the ranks was an evolved human known as Hunter Eagle, capable of sharing vision with a mutated Black Eagle under a soul contract. Hunter Eagle made a discovery almost immediately. Good heavens, those zombies are actually driving vehicles. He watched as an evolved zombie piloted a truck through the inner city, transporting the flesh of mutated beasts toward the stadium to feed the zombie horde. Wang Zhen immediately decided to follow the truck to see where it was headed. Unaware of this, I finished directing my puppet to feed the zombies at the gymnasium, then drove back to Qingshui Farm to park the truck in the warehouse. That Blackhawk followed me like a shadow. The Blackhawk pursued the truck all the way to the outskirts of Qingshui Farm. Through its avian eyes, the hunting hawk captured every detail of the farm's appearance. I have found that zombie. It drove into a farm on the outskirts, the hunting hawk reported, in a hushed tone. The farm's defenses were exceptionally rigorous. Beyond the protective perimeter fence lay a vast belt of blood-colored vines, and at the gate stood a giant, its stature rivaling that of a two-story building. The expressions of Wang Zhen and his two companions shifted drastically. Is the zombie king's lair truly within that farm? Zhang Hai swallowed hard. That behemoth at the gate must be at least a third-order combat-type zombie, right? This defensive strength is truly terrifying. I can also see several unusually large, evolved zombies patrolling inside the farm. Their aura is extremely ferocious. There are at least 4 or 5 of the third order. However, the hunting hawk could not see the full picture. The Black Hawk's flight altitude was not low enough to conduct a complete reconnaissance. What should we do? A direct assault? Li Feng furrowed his brows and asked. Wang Zhen shook his head. No. To launch an assault without a clear grasp of the situation carries too great a risk. We must first relay the intelligence to the base, and let the High Command decide the next course of action. Furthermore, the blood-colored vines I witnessed are far from ordinary. They resemble some form of mutated vegetation, and may very well be a defense system orchestrated by the Zombie King. What about the mysterious girl? If the Zombie King's lair is indeed in this farm, there is a high probability that she is inside as well. But for now, the greatest threat is not the girl, but the Zombie King itself. Once we alert the enemy, we will all perish in this place. After deliberating, the three decided to take no action for the time being, transmitting the location of the farm and the details of its defenses back to Shanghai base via their communication devices, awaiting orders from the High Command. The news reached the Supreme Commander with haste, and the atmosphere within the conference room grew heavy once more. Commander, Wang Zhen's squad has confirmed the defensive position of the farm is exceptionally fortified. There are at least several evolved zombies of the third rank, or higher standing guard, and beyond the perimeter fence lies a defensive line composed of unidentified mutated flora. Zombies of the third rank? At the highest level? The Supreme Commander's brows furrowed. How many third-rank evolvers does our base currently possess? No more than 10. And they are dispersed across various posts, making it nearly impossible to mobilize them all at once. A silence fell over the conference room. Everyone present was acutely aware of the base's current strength. To forcibly assault a stronghold guarded by multiple third-rank zombies would result in a negligible chance of victory, and they could not afford to act recklessly. The Supreme Commander finally rendered his decision. Increase surveillance for now, determine the behavioral patterns and the limits of the Zombie King's strength, and simultaneously report to the Imperial capital to request reinforcements. Furthermore, accelerate the cultivation of our own high-level evolvers. Before the Imperial capital support arrives, we must strictly avoid alerting the enemy. However, they remained unaware that the entity known as Air Pang at the farm gates had already attained the 4th rank. Combined with my own true form, Qingshui Farm actually possesses 6 combatants of the 4th rank, yet they are still assessing my strength based on the standards of the 3rd rank. Inside Qingshui Farm, I concluded a day of hunting and returned home to prepare a rich, hearty dinner for Cheeky. Cheeky ate with great delight, smiling at me with a grain of rice clinging to the corner of her mouth. Sumukin also obediently ate the meal brought to her by Cheeky, glancing at me surreptitiously as she did so. How could this Zombie King have changed so drastically? If one were not looking closely, one would easily mistake him for a living human. She was shocked to her core, and a staggering hypothesis began to form in her mind. Could it be that this Zombie King will eventually evolve into a living human? That night, Chiki suddenly approached Suamukin. If humans were to move against my father, which side would you choose? Sumudakin remained silent for a long time, offering no response. Chiki did not seem to mind. As she turned to leave, she remarked, "Forget it. There is no use in asking you." Sumukin sat helplessly on the bed, watching Chiki's departing silhouette, her heart in turmoil. The conflict between humanity and the Zombie King would inevitably reach a point of opposition. Yet, Sumukin recalled everything she had endured at the police station, and then, each day Chinchi would bring her meals and spend time conversing with her. Even though the Zombie King kept her chained like a pet, he had never truly brought her any harm. She suddenly felt that her own existence was utterly ridiculous. Sumukin lay back down on the bed, staring fixedly at the slide above her, tossing and turning throughout the night. Meanwhile, on high ground several dozen kilometers away, Wang Zheng's black eagle continued to circle above the Qingshui farm. Lai Ying suddenly opened his eyes. Captain Wang, a truck, has departed from the farm and is heading toward Huanglong Mountain. Wang Zheng nodded. Follow it closely and record every detail of its daily movements, the departure time, the chosen route, and the time of return. Everything must be documented without exception. Furthermore, find a way to gain a clear view of the core area within the farm, especially the exact location of that zombie king's true form. The black eagle soared silently in the high altitudes, capturing every detail of Qingshui farm within its gaze. Yun Ruoshu sat on a swinging chair, her white dress fluttering in the wind, a radiant smile gracing her delicate rosy face. Little Chi-Chi. It seems the matter has been resolved. Leaning against the slide, Su Muqin looked at Qin-Chi. Today was finally the day she was able to come outside. Yun Ruoxu nodded in response. Even if the Jianghai city base were to send scouts to the farm now, they would merely be throwing their lives away. So, little Chi-Chi, will you be coming out every day from now on? Su Muqin asked with a hint of anticipation. Being alone in the amusement park was truly monotonous. Naturally. Yun Ruoxu nodded earnestly. If I intend to subdue this 9-death demon realm, I must naturally cultivate our bond. Su Muqin spoke with sudden gravity. I will help you and your father. Yun Ruoxu realized that this was Su Muqin's response to the question she had posed some days prior. This reply caught the young girl entirely by surprise. After all, Su Muqin had always been loyal to the authorities, viewing the protection of survivors as more important than her own life. Why? Because I have promised to protect you, Su Muqin stated solemnly. She sensed that the zombie king possessed human consciousness and had never slaughtered the living. With little Chi-Chi serving as the tether here, the zombie king showed no signs of aggression. But should humanity pose a threat to little Chi-Chi, none could say for certain whether the zombie king would descend into madness. At that same moment, the Black Eagle followed the truck all the way out of Jiangnan City, arriving at the skies above the suburban farm. Through the eyes of his hawk, Liang Ying took in the entirety of the farm below. Yet, what truly chilled him to the bone was the sight of a young girl playing on a swing. Beside her, a human woman leaned against a slide, conversing with the child. Captains, I have located the mysterious girl. There is a human woman with her. Once the report was transmitted, the three captains exchanged grim looks. Wang Lei spoke in a low, gravelly voice. Could it be that this girl is the zombie king? Yun Ruoxu suddenly felt an unsettling sensation, as if she were being watched. She silently released her mental energy, which surged outward like a rising tide, only to discover a black hawk circling high above. This was no ordinary mutated beast. It was a contracted familiar belonging to an evolver. Yun Ruoxu quickly grasped the situation. The Jianghai city base had undoubtedly sent men once more. She unleashed a direct mental assault, invisible blades piercing straight into the hawk's brain. The hawk spiraled in the air. Thinking it was merely exhausted, Lai Ying hurriedly recalled the creature. Yun Ruoxu smiled triumphantly, immediately commanding a small sparrow to tail the retreating bird. The sparrows tracked them across the wilderness, eventually locating the three squads of evolvers near a ditch outside the city. Through the sparrow, Yun Ruoxu overheard their entire plan to launch a night raid. What she found most absurd was that these fools had mistaken her for the zombie king. Upon withdrawing her consciousness, Yun Ruoxu ran directly to me and pointed at the sky. Father, I saw people flying earlier. People flying? Could it be that human evolvers have already discovered the farm? After confirming with Xiao Qiki, I concluded that the farm's location had been compromised. Faced with the sudden arrival of these evolvers, my heart grew heavy, and I immediately ordered the entire army of corpse puppets to retreat. All 4 Tier 4 corpse puppets were summoned to the perimeter of the residential area to safeguard Qiki. Su Muqin sensed the unusual tension. Little Kiki, what is happening? What else could it be, other than human evolvers coming to stir up trouble? Little Kiki, could you ask your father to release my restraints? I am capable of lending my strength as well. Yun Ruoxu shook her head with a smile. There is no need for you yet. My father is more than capable of handling them. As night descended, I sat in the living room, closing my eyes to focus, monitoring the farm's perimeter through the senses of my corpse puppets. In the forest 2 kilometers from the farm, the 3 squads of evolvers finally revealed themselves. Our destination lies just ahead. Everyone, remain vigilant. Wang Lei wore a grave expression, oblivious to the small honeybee perched on a branch, watching them intently. The ones seeking death have arrived. A flicker of disdain flashed in Yun Ruoxu's eyes. The 3 squads crept closer toward the wall of blood-sucking demon vines. The very moment they crouched down to sever the vines, the blood-sucking demon vines pierced through the bodies of the 3 men, ravenously devouring their flesh and blood essence. This is not right. There is something wrong with this wall of vines. By the time Wang Lei's group realized the danger, 5 of their men had already been swallowed into the vine wall. In the midst of the chaos, more were impaled, while I, observing through the senses of my corpse puppets, spotted the intruders. Very well. If you are so eager to court death, then I shall fulfill your wish. I commanded my 4 Tier 4 corpse puppets to charge toward the residential complex, with Tyrant number 1 and Fatty number 2 leading the assault. Fatty number 2 swung his staff downward with such force that the leading evolved human, along with his shield, was crushed into fragments. Flame number 1 raised both hands, and over a dozen massive fireballs descended from the sky, detonating amidst the crowd. 4 evolved humans, unable to escape in time, were immediately engulfed by the sea of flames, while the remaining 6 were blasted away, scorched black. Earth Burrower number 1 instantly thrust a wall of earth upward, sealing off the survivors. Within the walls, stone spikes slowly emerged to pierce the trapped prey. One survivor attempted to scale the high wall, only to be struck by a fireball hurled by Flame number 1 from outside. In the ensuing panic, Captain Li Ren tried to flee by climbing over the wall, but he was struck by a punch from Tyrant number 1, which kept watch outside, and driven deep into the ground. Captain Lai, have they all perished? I failed to notice that one evolved human had utilized a substitution ability to slough off his skin like a cicada and escape. However, Yun Ruokshu, through the perspective of the blood-sucking demon vines, discovered one corpse that had not been devoured. It seems a fish has slipped through the net. Yun Ruokshu's brows furrowed tightly. The opponent must have used a diversionary ability to make his escape. Nonetheless, her true strength remains hidden. The opponent even mistakenly identifies her as the Zombie King. Perhaps in our next encounter, I shall provide them with a profound surprise. That night, Su Mukin tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. A sudden thought occurred to her. What if she could stop humanity from attacking the Zombie King, so that both sides could coexist in peace? Qian Yun returned with grim tidings. 3 combat teams had been completely annihilated. Beneath the command of the Zombie King are numerous Tier 4 evolved zombies, along with demon vines capable of hunting humans. Qian Yun trembled as he spoke. Once the news spread, the Supreme Commander immediately decided to request reinforcements from the imperial capital. Yun Ruokshu persuaded me to remove the shackles from Su Mukin, and Su Mukin expressed a desire to speak with me. In the living room, Su Mukin went straight to the point. Zombie King, you still retain your human consciousness, don't you? My gaze turned cold. This is the greatest secret I have guarded. I wrote down. I have not killed you yet. Continue. Su Mukin took a deep breath. Little Cheeky is, after all, a human. Surely you do not want her to spend her entire life living among zombies? Suppose one day you were to become the leader of humanity. Would you be willing to coexist peacefully with them? Both Yun Ruokshu and I were stunned by this question, yet I did not offer an immediate refusal. We shall speak of such things only when you have truly become the leader of the human race. The following day, Yun Ruokshu decided to reveal a portion of her true strength before me, so that I might be at ease to unbind Sun Mushin. Father, it seems I have awakened a superpower. As the child spread her arms and soared across the room, I was overcome with profound excitement. Little Cheeky had officially become an evolved one. I began to train her with the utmost seriousness, having her use iron nails to practice her offensive techniques, and preparing golden toxins for her to utilize as hidden weapons. Little Cheeky had become my greatest trump card. The Zhanghai City base finally received a response from the imperial capital, dispatching the Sky Regiment to provide reinforcements. Every member of the Sky Regiment was a Tier 3 aerial evolved one. A squadron of 5 armed helicopters approached at high speed, launching a ferocious bombardment upon the farm. Damnation, my farm. Yet, the Tier 4 zombie puppet remained unscathed. Flame 1 and Flame 2 transformed into giants of living fire, manifesting a web of flames that blanketed the sky, consuming the Sky Regiment mid-air. The Vampire Thunder Orbs and Vampire Divine Light of Immortal 1, in coordination with the Steel Claws of Tyrant 1, relentlessly annihilated the evolved ones attempting to break through the encirclement. Hidden in the shadows, Yun Ruokshu utilized her time manipulation abilities in tandem with the golden toxins, eliminating many foes rushing toward the residential quarters. Su Musin risked her life to protect little Kiki. Though she was pierced through the abdomen and collapsed in a pool of blood, she revived almost instantly and rejoined the fray. 3 elite squads, along with the entire Sky Regiment, were wiped out. Only one individual, Qian Yun, who possessed a substitution ability, managed to escape once again. The farm had been ravaged beyond recognition. I decided against rebuilding it. This location has been compromised. From this day forth, where shall little Cheeky go? Wherever we go, that is home, I wrote upon the paper. Su Muchen chose to remain and accompany us. Once the convoy departed the farm, it headed straight south toward Beishan City. I set out to gather evolved zombies, while simultaneously eradicating the Longhu gang that occupied the area. Zhang Qing, the second in command of the Longhu gang, escaped alongside an aerial evolved one, fleeing to the Beishan City base to report the news. After I had thoroughly harvested the evolved zombies within the inner city of Beishan, our convoy continued on its journey. Upon my breakthrough to Tier 5, my mental power surged explosively, and my range of manipulation expanded to 50 kilometers, capable of simultaneously controlling a vast number of Grade 4 corpse puppets. Under my command, I already possess 3 Grade 5 corpse puppets. Shanchuan City, however, is an entirely different matter. Ferocious beasts roam every corner. I led my legion of corpse puppets to hunt and slaughter beasts throughout the city, harvesting a massive quantity of gold cores. After eradicating the Beast King sect that occupied Mount Shangyu, I plundered their caves, securing a vast cache of supplies and spirit fruits. Before the Beast King sect's protector perished, he mentioned that the sect master had gone to subdue a Grade 5 beast, which instilled a sense of vigilance within me. Huang Xuan, the sect master of the Beast King sect, eventually arrived at my doorstep. Before the apocalypse, this man was nothing more than a debt collector for a loan shark. It was only after awakening his beast-taming ability that he rose to prominence. After his sister was driven to her death by the nobility, he sought to harness the power of the thunder roar to destroy the Shanchuan base. We share a common enemy. Let us join forces. Su Muqin refused him decisively. My apologies, I have no interest. Fuming with suppressed rage, Huang Xuan dispatched a mutated pangolin to ambush Zhao Qiki from beneath the earth, but Yun Ruoxu obliterated the creature with a single strike, leaving Huang Xuan so terrified that he fled in a panic, while simultaneously exposing our location to the Zhanghai City base. In Shanchuan City, Yun Ruoxu successfully achieved a breakthrough to Grade 5, mastering her psychokinesis. She could even solidify her mental energy into needles capable of piercing through reinforced walls. Her mastery over time grew even more profound, allowing her to drain a target's life force in the blink of an eye. Through the dual support of cultivation manuals and real-world combat, Su Muqin also achieved a breakthrough to Grade 4. Ms. Zhao Lin, from now on, I shall call you the Black Bull Knight. No, absolutely not. The Imperial capital has dispatched their strongest trump card, the Tenglong Battle Squad. This squad has previously succeeded in slaying a zombie king. Their key asset is the infiltrator Zhao Bing, who can disguise himself as any living creature to infiltrate enemy ranks. Their plan is to create a disturbance on the perimeter to draw our attention. Zhao Bing intends to disguise himself as a zombie to sneak in, aiming to assassinate the zombie king in one strike. One night, Yun Ruoxu finally gathered the courage to confess to me. Father, in truth I know how to control time. She demonstrated her ability, causing a lush pothos plant to wither in an instant, and a piece of snake meat to petrify in the blink of an eye. I was astonished, and my curiosity grew, but then Zhao Qiki revealed an even more terrifying truth. Father, in reality, I am already a Grade 5 evolved being. I stood frozen in place, yet I did not press for details. As long as she is my daughter, that is all that matters. Father, from now on, let me be the one to protect you. Little Qiki raised her small fist, a radiant smile on her face. I patted her head, feeling a swell of warmth and pride within me. After our convoy entered Lijiang City, I commanded my corpse puppets to harvest the zombie core crystals. However, the Lijiang base reacted with lightning speed, mobilizing their entire military force to launch a ferocious assault on the residential district. Fire puppet number 1, relying on its fire spirit body, was immune to physical attacks, but the relentless barrage of self-propelled grenades left me caught off guard. In that moment of extreme peril, Yun Ruoxu struck out in a fit of rage. No one is allowed to hurt my father. Her power to manipulate time erupted, and under the influence of her psychokinetic force, every incoming artillery shell was sent flying back along its original trajectory, directly obliterating the entire artillery position. The survivors fled in a panic, only to be pursued and cut down by my army of corpse puppets. Only one evolved human managed to grab the commander and use teleportation, narrowly escaping the carnage. In this battle, the offensive strength of the Lijiang base had been almost completely eradicated. I gazed upon the terrifying power that little Qiki had displayed, feeling immensely proud. With her very first strike, she had shattered their forces into total disarray. I fear that not even a 5th-rank corpse puppet under my command would be a match for her. Meanwhile, in the distance, a helicopter from the Tenglong Battle Squad was flying towards Shanchuan City. The man named Zhao Bing, who possessed the ability to shapeshift into any living creature, was wiping the Qing Zan blade in his hand, a confident smile playing on his face. Captain, rest assured, I guarantee that this mission will be completed. Once the battle at Lijiang concluded, I sat on the sofa in the living room, scanning the surroundings through the eyes of my corpse puppets. Father, we cannot continue to remain here any longer. Yun Ruoxu stepped to my side, her expression filled with gravity. I nodded. I had already foreseen this possibility. Su Muqin approached from the window, traces of dust from the battle still clinging to her face. We must leave immediately. The reaction speed of this Lijiang base is simply too fast. If they dispatch reinforcements, we risk being surrounded. Half an hour later, the convoy followed the main road out of Lijiang City, heading toward the south. I intentionally chose a path that would lead us far away from the city base. Utilizing aerial unit number 1 for reconnaissance from above, I confirmed that the remnants of the Lijiang base showed no signs of pursuit for the time being. The convoy sped at full capacity for 2 hours. Finally, "Father, where are we heading next?" Yun Ruoshu leaned over the backseat window, pressing her small face against the glass to gaze outside. I spread out the map, my eyes scanning the Jiang province. Heading south leads to Linyan City, and continuing further south will take us out of Jiang province entirely. The various city bases within Jiang province have already formed an intelligence network. My whereabouts are impossible to conceal. However, once we leave Jiang province, the transmission of information between the bases of different provinces will be significantly slower. By the time the other provinces react, I will have long since vanished without a trace. Leave Jiang province? Su Muqin appeared slightly startled. To leave the province requires traveling a great distance. Traveling further is safer, Yun Ruoxu answered for me. Staying in Jiang province means being found sooner or later. Su Muqin pondered for a moment and offered no further objections. The convoy continued to press southward. Along the way, I took the opportunity to harvest a collection of zombie nuclei. By dusk, we set up camp beside an abandoned gas station. A campfire was lit, and Su Muqin placed a piece of roasted rib onto Zhao Qiqi's plate before taking a deep swallow of beer herself. Zhao Qiqi, would you say your father's cooking skills are comparable to those of a professional chef? Perhaps. Yun Ruoxu smiled as she accepted the rib. I sat in the passenger seat, studying the map. From here to the border of Jiang province, there are still about 200 kilometers left. But the problem is that along this route, there lies Linyan City, which cannot be bypassed. Linyan City stretches from north to south, making it nearly impossible to circumvent. We have no choice but to pass straight through the city, and it is certain that a city base exists within Linyan. I furrowed my brow. If the Lijiang city base has already disseminated the news, it is highly probable that the Linxian city base has already prepared an ambush waiting for us, and passing through the city may very well result in a brutal confrontation. Yun Ruoshu seemed to perceive my anxiety, scampering over to lean against the car window, peering at the map. Is father worried about Linyan City? I nodded. Do not worry, I am here. The young girl clenched her small fists, her gaze filled with solemn determination. Such a child. I could not help but chuckle, reaching out to gently pinch her small, soft cheeks. Yet, in this brief moment of tranquility, through the perspective of Flight Unit 1, I caught sight of small black specks on the northern horizon, hurtling toward us through the sky. My expression turned cold instantly. Those were not helicopters from the Lijiang city base. Ordering them to get Zhao Qiqi into the vehicle, I tossed a piece of paper to Su Muqin. Su Muqin did not hesitate. She gathered Yun Ruoshu and dashed straight for the car. Yun Ruoshu's eyes narrowed slightly. Father, those 3 helicopters are not from Lijiang. Su Muqin's complexion shifted as well, but after hovering in the air a few kilometers to the north, the helicopters vanished from sight. I did not relax my vigilance, commanding Flight Unit 1 to covertly tail them for a distance. Through the vision of Flight Unit 1, I observed 7 soldiers clad in elite equipment disembarking from the helicopters, among whom the buzz-cut man in the lead exuded the aura of a fourth-order cultivator. Upon landing, the 7 men immediately established a camp on the spot. These individuals are not to be underestimated. They are either elites from a major city base, or agents dispatched by the imperial capital. At the thought of the imperial capital, my heart tightened. I had already annihilated the entire Sky Battle Squadron at the Qingshui farm. Those who have arrived this time are likely the Imperial Capital's second trump card. I decided to remain still for the moment, allowing Flight Unit 1 to continue monitoring their movements, while simultaneously ordering the convoy to shut down their engines and hide in the shadows. After the team of 7 finished setting up their camp, judging by their continuous examination of maps and documents, they were undoubtedly executing a specific mission. This is no coincidence. They have come specifically for me. Yun Ruoxu was also not asleep. She was sitting cross-legged in the back seat, practicing her cultivation, and sensed the shift in my emotions. Father, is there a situation? I wrote on the paper. A 7-man squad has arrived from the north, equipped with elite gear. I suspect they are from the imperial capital, and may be searching for us. After reading it, Yun Ruoxu's brow furrowed. If they are the imperial capital's trump card squadron, there is a high probability that some among them possess unique abilities. The last Sky Battle Squadron consisted entirely of flight-type users. This time, we may face even more formidable adversaries. This is precisely what concerns me the most. Suddenly, a thin young man from the group of 7 departed from the camp and ventured into the nearby forest alone. Once he stepped into the woods, his aura abruptly shifted from that of a human to that of a zombie. This fellow can disguise himself as a zombie. In an instant, I understood their strategy. If I had not discovered this imposter could have successfully infiltrated the ranks of the zombie puppets, and once close, he would have launched a surprise attack. It is highly probable that the previous zombie king was killed in this exact manner. Little Cheeky, we have trouble again. I recounted the matter of the imposter to Yun Ruoxu. Upon hearing this, Yun Ruoxu's expression became grave. Disguising oneself as a zombie. The innocence vanished from her small face, replaced by a sharp, piercing gaze. Such an ability is truly rare. If his disguise is sufficiently perfect, Father, your spiritual sense may not necessarily be able to distinguish him, but I can. Her tone was remarkably calm and confident. Time manipulation allows one to perceive the flow of time within all living beings. The flow of time for a zombie and for a human is distinct. The aging process within a zombie's body has ceased. Yet no matter how a human disguises themselves, the rate at which time passes within their body remains normal. As long as I sense it carefully, I will certainly be able to drag him out. My heart felt somewhat at ease, but I refused to underestimate the enemy. We changed our plans. I wrote on a piece of paper, "We will not pass through Linian City. We shall take the mountain path instead." Su Mukin had awoken by then and leaned in to read the paper. Taking the detour will cost us several extra days. A few extra days are preferable to falling into an ambush. Su Mukin observed our expressions and did not press for further questions. Before dawn, I deliberately chose a remote mountain trail. This path was incredibly difficult to traverse, but it offered excellent concealment. However, I had underestimated the enemy's tracking capabilities. After the caravan had traveled for about 3 hours, I received news that the group of 7 had broken camp and were moving southward. They are tracking us. Through the aerial perspective of Flight Unit 1, I discovered a mutated beast of prey circling high above the convoy. Shooting down this beast would be effortless, but alerting the enemy would likely force them to abandon their current strategy, shifting from an ambush to a direct, overwhelming assault. After a moment of deliberation, I decided that if they intend to use a disguised assassin, then I shall turn their own plan against them. I relayed the strategy to Yun Ruoxu and Su Mukin. "Father, do you mean to intentionally reveal a flaw, lure the disguised assassin in, and capture them all in one fell swoop?" Su Mukin, however, hesitated. "The risk is immense. What if the infiltrator's abilities far exceed our expectations? With me here, he cannot turn the heavens upside down." Yun Ruoxu patted her small chest confidently. Su Mukin glanced at her strangely, recalling the scene yesterday where the girl had reversed the trajectory of an entire artillery barrage, and she obediently kept her silence. Following the plan, as dusk fell, the convoy halted in a level river valley to make camp. I intentionally deployed only a small number of corpse puppets, hiding the higher tier ones in the surrounding forest. From the outside, the camp's defenses appeared riddled with openings. At night, I sat by the campfire, feigning relaxation, though in truth, my spiritual sense was fully extended. Yun Ruoxu lay in the tent, though in reality, her time perception ability remained active. Su Mukin, however, was genuinely asleep. At the dead of night, my spiritual sense caught an anomaly. On the edge of the campsite, a standard zombie was slowly drawing near. Its appearance was indistinguishable from the other zombies, yet its path was far too deliberate. It bypassed the patrolling corpse puppets, navigating through the gaps in the perimeter to infiltrate the center of the camp. I did not alert them, continuing to feign ignorance. The approaching zombie reached the very edge of the encampment. Its gaze swept across the campfire, eventually locking firmly onto me. Clutching a short blade, it lunged directly toward me. The moment the disguised assassin reached a distance of 5 meters, time froze around him. Yun Ruoxu stepped out from the tent, her small face cold. "He is human, after all," she spoke calmly. "There is no flow of time within a zombie's body, yet his heart is still beating." I rose and walked before the infiltrator to observe him meticulously. From his appearance to his aura, this individual's disguise was nearly flawless. Were it not for Yun Ruoxu's ability to control time, I truly might not have seen through him at the first instance. The next moment, I released my spiritual sense, ordering a full-scale assault for the Tier 5 corpse puppets hiding in the woods. Meanwhile, at the temporary camp of the 7-man squad several kilometers away, they instantly felt the overwhelming surge of killing intent. "This is disastrous. Zhao Bing has been exposed." Qin Hang, the man with the buzz cut, saw his expression change violently and leapt to his feet. "All units, prepare for combat." But it was already too late. The fire spirit Blood Flame, from Flame Number 1, was the first to descend upon them. In less than 10 seconds, the 3 helicopters were reduced to giant fireballs. Their path of retreat had been severed. A pale-faced evolved human stood trembling. Undead Number 1 followed closely behind, a blood-colored light shrouding another evolved human currently channeling his ability. The man felt his body defy his own command, pulled helplessly toward Undead Number 1. In the next heartbeat, a long, blood-drenched tongue pierced through his chest. Flight Number 1 dove from the sky, unleashing the flying domain. Beneath the shroud of the spherical stagnation field, the long-range attacks launched by 2 evolved humans were instantly slowed. Their destructive power diminished to almost nothing. Yet the steel talons of Flight Number 1 remained completely unaffected. Qin Hang's ability was metallic surface transmutation, coating his entire body in a silver metallic armor with peerless defensive capabilities. Fatty 2 brought his staff crashing down. Although the metallic armor dented, it did not shatter. However, A second strike followed immediately in succession, and the metallic armor detonated, sending Qin Hang spiraling backward while spitting blood. Before he could even strike the ground, the long tongue of undead number 1 had already overtaken him. Qin Hang perished on the spot. Through the perspective of my puppet, I confirmed that not a single member of the 7-man squad survived. I let out a sigh of relief and returned to the campsite, gazing at the imposter still frozen in place. How should we dispose of him? Su Muqin was awakened by the commotion. She draped a robe over her shoulders and stepped out, visibly startled. Kill him, Yun Ruoxu stated calmly. She flicked her wrist, and a needle of psychokinetic energy pierced straight through the center of the imposter's forehead. As the time stasis effect dissipated, the imposter's body went limp, collapsing to the ground and reverting to his true human form. Su Muqin crouched down and retrieved an identification card from the corpse's chest pocket. The Tenglong Battle Squad. My own heart remained largely untroubled. Yet Yun Ruoxu's reaction caught me by surprise. She stared intensely at the card for a long time. The Imperial capital has now dispatched 2 of their ace squads, only for both to be completely annihilated. Next time, they will likely forego sending mere squads, and instead deploy an entire army. Yun Ruoxu raised her head, her gaze profound. Once the Imperial capital confirms that their 2 elite squads have been completely annihilated, they will classify us as a level 1 threat. By then, the intensity of the pursuit will increase tenfold. The destruction of their 2 elite squads only serves to further convince the Imperial capital of the Zombie King's lethal danger. They will not give up. Rather, they will only bolster their forces. Therefore, we must depart as soon as possible. I drafted the orders in the dead of night, and the convoy set out, driving through the night without pause. I kept Flight 1 scouting from above, ensuring no soldiers were tracking our trail. As we approached the outskirts of Linian City, I decided not to take the detour, but to strike directly through the city. A detour would cost us at least 5 additional days. Every day spent in the wilderness is another day of risk. While the Linian City area does house a survivor base, the city is vast. As long as we choose a route far from the base and move quickly, the probability of detection remains low. I had already projected my mental energy, bringing every zombie along our path under my control to clear a way for the convoy. The entire convoy threaded through the dark urban streets without making a sound. We successfully traversed the majority of Linian City, and the southern exit lay just ahead. At that very moment, Flight 1 transmitted an urgent alert. A military convoy was stationed on the overpass at the southern exit. A massive formation of armored vehicles and military trucks blocked the bridge, creating an impenetrable barricade. Snipers were positioned on the buildings flanking both ends of the bridge. It was the forces of the Linian City base. However, upon closer observation, I noticed that these soldiers displayed no signs of combat readiness or tension. It seems the Linian City base had established checkpoints at the main exits after receiving notification of the Zombie King's emergence. Father, shall we pass through here? Yun Ruoxu asked. Even if we could break through, the commotion would be too great and would only draw the pursuit of the entire city base. I agreed. The convoy turned back, navigating through a secluded, winding alley to head west according to the map. I intended to cut through the industrial district on the west side of Linland City and utilize the ring road there to exit the city. But the road conditions in the industrial district were dire. Collapsed factories and congested vehicles blocked the path at every turn. 20 minutes later, the convoy cleared the industrial district. As we merged onto the ring road, just as I believed we had made a successful escape, the thunderous roar of 3 armed helicopters approached from the direction of the city, their searchlights cutting through the darkness like talons searching for prey. Accelerate! My intuition stirred. The convoy immediately surged forward. The helicopters closed the distance rapidly, their spotlights locking firmly onto the vehicles. Without warning, the mounted machine guns opened fire, the bullets tearing into the asphalt at the rear of the convoy, sending sparks showering into the night. The convoy ahead, halt immediately for inspection. Otherwise, we will commence lethal fire. I remained unperturbed. A Type 1 projectile shot upward from within the convoy, transforming into a brilliant streak of crimson as it streaked toward the helicopter formation. Amidst a violent detonation, flames erupted into the sky, showering the earth with twisted wreckage. The searchlights vanished, and the pursuit was severed. The convoy raced at maximum speed, crossing the city limits and vanishing into the impenetrable veil of night. We have made it out. Su Muqin breathed a long sigh of relief. Yet my heart could not yet find peace. The Linaran base would undoubtedly report our trajectory to their superiors. Every second of the journey ahead must be contested. We cannot afford a moment of delay. The convoy thundered onward, and as the sky began to gray with the coming dawn, the marker signifying the border between Jiang province and the neighboring territory finally came into view. But at the very moment the wheels rolled across the boundary, the feed from aerial drone number 1 transmitted an image that caused the smile on my face to freeze instantly. Standing atop a hill south of the provincial border, Huang Xuan gazed down at the convoy crossing into the new territory. He simply watched from a distance, as if observing the movements of a prey. Yun Ruoxu had also detected Huang Xuan's presence. a flash of chilling intent crossing her delicate features. This man is dangerous. He will not let this rest. Should we eliminate him now? I shook my head. Although we had slain Huang Xuan's mutated pangolin, he was a beast tamer by trade. There was no telling what hidden trump cards he might still hold in the shadows. Furthermore, this was not the most opportune moment to deal with him. Now that we have cleared the province, we must plan for the long term. Let us press on. I will settle this debt later. The convoy continued southward, venturing into the territory of the neighboring province. Once clear of Jiang province, the condition of the roads improved significantly. The expansive highway, though congested with debris and abandoned vehicles, was 1,000 times better than the treacherous, winding mountain paths of before. 3 days later, we arrived at Yunchao City. In the world before, Yunchao was a major metropolis with a population of 3 million, but it had since been claimed by the Horde. Yet to me, this place was nothing short of a massive treasure trove. 3 million souls meant a massive concentration of the undead, and a massive concentration of the undead meant a wealth of evolved zombies and spirit cores. Moreover, as this place was far removed from Jiang province, communication was sluggish. For the time being, there was no need to fear pursuit from human city bases. As the convoy rolled into the heart of Yunchao, following our established routine, I scoured the surrounding area, harvesting gold cores one by one, while Yun Ruoxu seized every moment to cultivate, simultaneously nurturing her old turtle. Through the steady accumulation of these past days, the old turtle finally succeeded in advancing to the 4th rank. Its size has grown so significantly that one could easily place a gaming table upon its shell. Suno Mukin was not idle either. Every day, she rode the mutated black bull, Dahe, out to hunt ferocious beasts, steadily increasing her combat prowess. At the same time, she persisted in practicing the 9-origin pulse-severing manual imparted by Yun Ruoxu, her aura becoming increasingly profound. As for me, I utilized this time to expand the ranks of the zombie puppets under my command. Through the harvest of zombie gold cores within the inner city of Yunju, I managed to nurture even more 4th-rank zombie puppets. Possessing this level of strength, I am confident that I could face a medium-sized city base in a direct confrontation, yet my only desire is to find a sanctuary where Zhao Qiki can grow up in peace. Regrettably, on the 5th night of our stay in Yunju City, through aerial reconnaissance from Flying Unit 1, I discovered a massive convoy in the northwest of the inner city moving directly toward our position. Dozens of military vehicles, armored transports, and tanks were present, escorted by 6 armed helicopters. In the center of the convoy were several command vehicles marked with distinct insignias, their path set straight toward the heart of Yunchao. Word has finally reached this far. My heart sank. It seems the capital has extended the arrest warrant for the Zombie King to the neighboring provinces. This army is highly likely a sweeping force organized by the neighboring provincial base after receiving the dispatch. However, one cannot exclude the possibility that Huang Xuan has leaked my location to the city base on this side. Regardless of the circumstances, I can no longer remain in this place. Accustomed to this nomadic life of having no permanent home, Su Mukin silently began to pack our belongings. Yun Ruoxu stepped toward the window, gazing at the silent streets outside. Father, we cannot continue to run like this forever. I knew she was right. But at this moment, other than fleeing, what else could I do? There will come a day when we no longer need to run. Yun Ruoxu turned back and smiled at me, her expression hiding a calmness and resolve far beyond her actual years. At dawn, our convoy vanished into the darkness of Yunju City. While several dozen kilometers away, the formidable military column continued its relentless advance. Inside a command vehicle, a middle-aged man with a frigid expression flipped through a file. On the cover of the document was a red, top-secret stamp with a title consisting of only 5 words: Zombie King Dossier. The man closed the file, fixing his gaze toward the direction of Yunju City, now submerged in shadows.